start to finish. Between the start and the finish, I ran up expense account items 3 through 5. 75 cents. And dinner. Expense account item 26, 49 cents, car rental and hotel bill. Item 27, $21.43, train fare and incidentals back to Hartford. Expense account total $123.66. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Remember, friends, Wrigley's Spearmint Gum is a refreshing, delicious treat you can enjoy just about any time. Chew a few sticks of Wrigley's Spearmint during the day and see how the good chewing helps keep you feeling flavor. Full-body flavor of Wrigley's Spearmint cools your mouth, freshens your taste, and sweetens your breath. The chewing itself gives you a nice little boost, helps you keep going at your best. Millions of people of Wrigley's Spearmint Gum every day, and we know that you'll enjoy it. Packages and remember, Halloween sure to have plenty of Wrigley's Spearmint Gum on hand for the youngsters who's calling for tricks or treats. That's Wrigley's Spearmint. Refreshing, delicious.
Wow, just keep dumping it, Just keep it up.
Yours truly, Rick.
Wow.
Written by Edwards with music by Eddie Dunstetter. Featured in tonight's cast were David Young, Jeanette Nolan, John McIntyre, Hy Averback, Frank Nelson, and Bill Conrad. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. Inviting you to join us again next week at this. This is the CBS Radio Network.
Music around the clock on Eclectic 24.
No.
Superintendent. The job is so perfect for me. I had a career breakthrough. I would have never found this job if it wasn't for ZipRecruiter.
With ZipRecruiter, we've hired everyone from accountants to project managers.
安全的长距离海上航行成为可能。由于哈里森的巨大贡献，在1884年的国际子午线大会上，领先掌控经济计算的格雷菲治得到最多支持，将本初子午线锁定在自己的天文台上。地球上第一次实现了空间和时间的完美结合。没有人是一座孤岛，独居在星辰大海间。这里是南海之声。中国国际广播电台 The Voice of South China Sea from China.
Minute 7 a.m. Beijing time.
Oh, dear.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Bigham with you on this Friday, April 23rd, 2021. Listening to the Beijing Hour, live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, the Chinese president has called on the international community to work together on climate change in his speech at a U.S.-hosted virtual summit. China's planned hundreds of activities as the country marks its 6th annual Space Day on Saturday. And a funeral has been held in Minnesota for the 20-year-old black man who was killed by a police officer who
text tutorials on
in the CBA finals. In culture and entertainment, digital copies of ancient Chinese books. Now the day's top stories. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called on the international community to work together to foster a community for man and nature with unprecedented ambition and action. Yang Guang has more.
The Chinese president has made several proposals while addressing the latest summit on climate via video link from Beijing. He has called for following the innate laws of the ecosystem and properly balancing all elements and aspects of nature.
I'm laughing because they've turned this right back
Climate
on
change
the
has
US.
posed severe challenges to human survival and development. The international community needs to jointly
check
build a
those out,
community
man.
of life
Sorry,
for
all ties
man
together.
and nature. First, we must be committed to harmony between man and nature. Mother Nature has nourished us, and we must treat nature as our root, respect it, and protect it.
In the journey toward global carbon neutrality, Xi Jinping has called for strengthening partnerships and cooperation, learning from each other and making common progress. China and the United States issued a joint statement a few days ago, vowing to cooperate with each other and with other countries to tackle the climate crisis. The Chinese president says China welcomes the United States' return to the multilateral climate governance process and looks forward to working with the international community to jointly advance global environmental governance. He says developed countries need to increase climate ambition and action.
共同带有区别的责任原则是全球气候治理的基石。
The principle
doing. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is pledging that Canada will slash its greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 45% within the next decade.
The cut applies to 2005 emissions levels. The new target is higher than the 36% reduction in emissions the Liberal government says it can achieve under existing measures by 2030. Trudeau announced the higher target during a virtual climate summit of world leaders convened by U.S. President Joe Biden, who pledged to cut his country's emissions by 50 to 52% by 2030. Still, Canada's new target falls short of the minimum 50 to 60% reduction that climate groups and opposition parties said was needed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Terry Pitt, the Canadian Press, Ottawa.
In sports, two matchups in the NHL's North Division. The Maple Leafs take down the Winnipeg Jets 5-3, and it's the Ottawa Senators just shutting out the Vancouver Canucks 3-0. Elsewhere in the league, the Colorado Avalanche become the second team to clinch a spot in the NHL playoffs with a 4-2 victory over the St.
Colorado Avalanche. Those are both trucks, aren't they? In a canyon, Colorado. Never mind.
An action plan toward a carbon peak is being formulated, and China's national carbon market will also start trading.
With the
Beijing Hour,
the National Energy Administration said China aims to reduce the share of coal in its energy mix to less than 56% this year. The proportion was 56.8% in 2020 and 57.7% in 2019. China will push forward with the efficient and clean use of coal and enhance energy management. The country will also strive to bring the installed capacity of non-fossil energy to 1.1 billion kilowatts and cut energy consumption per unit of gross domestic product by around 3% this year. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the world's at the verge of the abyss because of climate change and must take aggressive countermeasures. Speaking at an international virtual summit on climate change, Guterres called for world leaders to build a global coalition for net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Before the United Nations Climate Conference in November in Glasgow, we need concrete proposals that need access to greater finance and technological support for the most vulnerable countries. Developed states must deliver on public climate finance, including the long-promised $100 billion for climate action in development.
Brad, about travel, flights coming into Canada from India and Pakistan.
You don't expect much
from politics in general. So I look forward to having that conversation. It is with the Friday show. What the Friday will happen. April Riffage will happen. Matt MacArthur's got a nice little set all queued up for us on the pre-tape so we can have some fun with that. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of friends. I'm going to introduce you to a coworker named Nitu. She is a broadcaster on the West Coast, and she has asked, this is bold in the world of broadcasting, as a person who changed his name from a radio name to his real name, I get the part of going to your bosses and saying, hey, by the way, I'm not going to go by that name anymore. Now, in this case, she had a really great reason. There was a language history thing, proper pronunciation, plus respecting not only what she wanted to be called with her real name and how to pronounce it, but her culture and her family. And Nitu, which I'm practicing trying to get it right, we used to call her Nitu. She had an anglicized name. I look forward to hearing the conversation about why she did that. That's going to strike home for so many people.
No.
Even if you just had a nickname that you didn't really like.
Anglicized
all your
her
life.
name. You mean it was
If you
Romanized?
were even a Robert, you got called Bob, and you didn't like it. You want to be Robert, damn it. There are so many ways that that conversation is going to strike home. And I'm also going to introduce you to another friend of mine. His name is Koljit. And Koljit is an old coworker of mine, and after the conversation we had last night on the shift, which is on the podcast if you missed it, with Gurdeep Pundar, trying to get his name right, I learned that we're not saying people's name. We're not putting the effort in to say the names right. We're not, in this world of respect and bias and trying to live more authentically and just be nice to other humans.
To apply emissions trading to buildings, transport, and other sectors.
In June, my commission will table proposals.
So is this person's name now METOO? Me Too.
We will make emission trading work not only for energy generation and industry, but also for transport and for buildings. Carbon must have its price because nature cannot pay the price any longer.
EU member states have agreed on binding targets for carbon emissions, setting the region on a path to being climate neutral by 2050. The initial 2030 target was a 40% emissions cut that was pushed up to 55%, following increasing evidence of climate change. Russian President Vladimir Putin says his country advocates international cooperation to fight against climate change. The Russian president made the remarks at the Leaders' Summit on climate. Putin says Russia is fulfilling its international obligations regarding the implementation of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Kyoto Protocol, and the Paris Agreement. He called for all interested countries to join efforts in scientific research and to invest together in important climate projects. The Russian leader also stressed that global development should not only be green, but also sustainable and inclusive. With more on the Leaders' Summit on climate now, we spoke to Canadian political analyst Brady Fox. First of all, Chinese President Xi Jinping's reaffirmed Beijing's commitment to overcoming climate change while upholding multilateralism in this global fight. So how significant is China's commitment?
China's commitment is extremely significant. First off, Beijing's climate change pledge to reach carbon neutrality by 2060 is very ambitious and very impressive. If you compare this with the United States goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, China is planning to arrive at that same goal just 10 years later. This is incredibly ambitious, reflects the capabilities. But the emphasis on multilateralism is significant in a couple of ways. For one, sustainable development is increasingly at the center of Beijing's approach to development, as we see new stages of programs in the Belt and Road Initiative and a focus on incorporating sustainable development into economic development abroad. And secondly, shared interests, kind of foster cooperation. And so cooperation on climate change is a theater for the United States and China and some other major countries to work together, in some cases have some shared successes, and improve their relationships more broadly. It's interesting because unlike the Trump administration, the Biden administration,
it's really going to repeat themselves.
Right. Hurriedly, the men put the sack containing the pokes of sand on the buckboard and transferred the sack of gold dust to the black horse. Then Joe spoke again.
Now, Slippy and me'll get going. As soon as we're out of sight, Jake, you and Sam start a rump, all right? Go on, get going. Get down, come on. All right, Sam, let's start things going. This will bring the crowd in no time. Shoot a few more times. I'll kneel down beside Selden, look like I'm trying to help you. Oh, you all right? Oh, take it easy, bud. We drove them off before they got away with anything. How do you feel?
Yeah, like the Instacart for the, actually it's funny because it's for the Real Canadian Superstore, which is literally a block away from where I live. But I decided to do it because I've been going off-hour grocery shopping to try to avoid all the people. But it seems like a lot of people are getting that idea now. So I was a little bit uncomfortable in the store last week. So I was like, I'm going to try the online thing.
We should have a conversation here on the shift about groceries, and I don't mean groceries about from price of price of food. That's always a good conversation. But I think that there's a big secret in Canada, and I think everyone in Ontario gets ripped off in a big way, because Loblaws in Ontario and Lowe's and all of those chains in Ontario are so incredibly popular, right? You're an independent grocer, and that's the Loblaws group. But in Western Canada, we have the Real Canadian Superstore, which is also Loblaws. And we get the giant discount Loblaws version of it. And it's there, but it's not as common as it is here. And so I think that I think it's a ripoff, because all of the Loblaws supporters for all these years in Ontario, you don't get the big store unless they've started putting them up in the last couple of last year here that I
big a Loblaws is?
That in itself is a whole Canadian conversation about how groceries are different from, Manitoba West.
It's interesting that you bring this up because in case you missed it, I'm highlighting a story. Global did a look at how sometimes when you buy groceries online, you're actually getting scammed. So stick with it too in case you missed it, because I have more on that coming up next hour.
Really?
You just where's my buzz on getting groceries online? I've never been scammed.
It's not all bad.
Okay.
You still made a good decision because you stayed safe.
Yes.
How did you say somebody else touched all your
See,
shit?
Dr. O'Donnell saving the day one more time.
Because they kill, torture, forced labor, rape. How do you live with the killer, the raper, the torturer, and the murderers? It's impossible. So it's not us who is going to do it. All the people of Myanmar are right now kept under hostage.
No, but that's the question. You say you face violence. Are you going to respond with violence?
We have to deter these military generals' operations. We have to think the way how to destroy their weapons, which they are using against the people of Myanmar. The only way to minimize the death toll is to counter their weapons before they use it against the people of Myanmar.
This weekend, the regional body, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is going to meet in Jakarta to discuss the situation in Myanmar. What are your expectations from such a regional summit?
We appreciate of ASEAN leaders for willingness to help the people of Myanmar. But again, ASEAN leaders have to include the people of Myanmar in any talk or any summit about Myanmar and its future.
Has your body received an invitation?
We don't at the moment, but we are ready to engage and work with ASEAN if we are invited.
Do you know if China will be there? They don't have a full membership, but they're a sort of associate, aren't they? Will they be attending?
China, India, or European unions or the rest of the world are waiting and watching this ASEAN summit very closely. And we are urging ASEAN, as they invited this Commander-in-Chief Min Aung Hlaing to enter this summit, we are asking ASEAN to directly, seriously talk to this Commander-in-Chief Min Aung Hlaing.
When you look around the region, are there countries you feel who might be prepared to put serious pressure, put sanctions, as you say, on the generals?
We appreciate the ASEAN leaders, our neighbors, have been talking to us. Yeah, we talk to them behind the scene. But again, we are asking them is to really come with a solution, strong solution.
Among your demands, how significant is the release of Aung San Suu Kyi and other prominent leaders in jail in the country?
I know that ASEAN leaders have been asking for the release of all political prisoners, as we speak today, it's more than 3,300 political prisoners are being kept hostage by these military generals, including Aung San Suu Kyi and the president. So it's a must for them to release, because Aung San Suu Kyi is not just ordinary person. She is elected leader of Myanmar. Releasing her will make the way forward. That's very, very important, psychologically, emotionally, not just only politically. It's impossible to sit in the dialogue table when our leader are being kept hostage by these murderers.
That's Dr. Sasser, goes by one name only, spokesperson of the recently set up National Unity Government in opposition to the military leaders, military rulers in Myanmar.
Let's get to all the latest sports headlines now with James Gregg.
No, you're trying to wipe that shit out of my brain.
Once they get a foothold and they're being transmitted, they certainly can get amplified.
And there are still some unanswered questions. The Public Health Agency of Canada wouldn't tell us how many of those people who tested positive were isolating, nor how many people refused to take a test at all.
So it's interesting to find out what's going to come next, but at least there is something started. And a topic that's been brought up several times during the pandemic, the idea of paid sick leave for wage workers in Ontario is working on a program to address it. But calls are getting louder for governments across the country to implement their own provincial strategies. This is Nicole Stilger.
I was very frustrated. Back in September, Adriana McDonald had to spend a week isolating because of COVID-19, burning through all of her banked paid sick time in the process.
If I was sick again, with COVID or anything else, I had to rely on the government.
At the time, she was an EA with Edmonton Public Schools. This happened right at the start of the school year. She says the province should be looking at implementing paid sick leave,
so that Albertans don't have to worry where their next meal is going to come from or where their income is going to come if they're sick.
On Thursday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford confirmed that province is working on a paid sick leave program. Now calls are growing louder for all provincial governments to do the same.
The days when people would be heroic and go to work sick, they're past, because they're causing harm to their co-workers and they're causing harm to their business.
Dr. Noel Gibney says paid sick leave benefits not only workers, but employers too.
Well, the province as a whole would benefit from having sick days so that we have a chance to have this third wave of COVID settle down and give us a chance to move on towards a new normal.
A paid 3-hour vaccination leave is now in effect, but so far in Alberta, it doesn't go further than that when it comes to helping those dealing with COVID-19 issues. Alberta's Labour Minister says the province has put in job protection for those who need to isolate or look after their families.
These are unpaid leaves. We put these in place. And the federal government also has paid sick leave and provides financial support under their programs.
The federal government's program pays $500 per week for up to 4 weeks for anyone required to quarantine because of COVID-19. While it's better than nothing, it's also been heavily criticized.
It's simply inadequate.
As for McDonald, she works from home now, and while she has not had to take more sick days, she hopes this conversation gets louder.
People are having to decide between their jobs and their health, and that's pretty sad right now.
Nicole Stilger, Global News.
It is an interesting conversation because Doug Ford seems to be getting poked in the eye for his decisions around that, but other premiers are getting off the hook with it. So we'll ask Dwayne Bratt about that coming up here shortly on the shift. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is pledging to reduce Canada's carbon emission levels by up to 45% by 2030. This is with his connection and conversation with Joe Biden. And then, of course, America just said, by the way, we'll help you out with vaccines. So scratch my back, scratch your back. David Aiken reports on the criticism against the goal and the skepticism of the federal government can even pull it off.
U.S. President Joe Biden made the call to climate action, and Canada's Prime Minister responded.
Our new climate target for 2030 is to reduce our 2005 emission levels by 40 to 45%.
The previous target was to cut emissions by 30%, and to do that by the end of this decade.
Canada is now on track to blow past our old target of 30% reduction below 2005 levels.
But some critics say Canadian governments have a history of setting targets but never hitting them. Others say the targets are not ambitious enough. In any event, many experts say hitting the new targets is possible.
I mean, I think it's going to be tough. It is ambitious.
But it will require a radical overhaul of Western Canada's energy sector.
It's going to be a transition. Everybody recognizes that. And we need to get to the point where we're not combusting carbon. That's what net zero means. You've got to get to a point where you're not combusting carbon as a source of energy.
But Wilkinson conceded that his government has yet to come up with the detailed plan to meet the new targets Trudeau announced at the summit.
We will need to continue to do work over the coming 9 years, which remain between now and 2030. There certainly are areas where we believe that we can continue to accelerate progress.
Some potential ideas: a massive home retrofit program to plug energy leaks, a complete change to Canada's transportation supply chain, and the creation of new kinds of energy industries.
The two natural resource wild cards would be hydrogen and biofuels, second generation biofuels. Is there potential for exports from Canada?
But all agree, whatever plan the government tables to meet its new ambition to quickly cut emissions, it will cost billions. David Aiken, Global News, Ottawa.
Our conversation about groceries, this is why it's confusing, and this is exactly why I think we need to talk about it. Bill says, because I said there's real Canadian superstores in Western Canada, and I think that Ontario misses out on that. Bill says there are several real Canadian superstores between St. Catharines, Hamilton, and Toronto. And maybe there are now. I haven't seen one yet, but I have also driven there through COVID. Henry in Mississauga says there's Loblaw superstores in Ontario, not real Canadian superstores, but there are some in the East Coast. So in the Maritimes. So isn't it interesting? It's crazy. Perspective is amazing. 877-399-9898. We're going to get clarification on all these political things with Dwayne Bratt next on the show.
I'm getting tired of it. Listening to yours anyway. It gets on my nerves. Now, if you don't like working for me, see it someplace else. I share,
of these police-involved deaths. Take a listen.
Why did he have to die the way that he died? My family has to still come to grips with that. It's sad that it's just not my family in America. Because the color of our skin, our men, our young men, they're being murdered.
So, of course, quite rightly, the focus today is on Dante Wright, but next month that will turn to Kim Potter, who will once again appear in court. She has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. She did resign following the shooting and death of Dante Wright, but since then she has now been charged with second-degree manslaughter. She will appear in court on May 17th. Now, of course, police say that she mistakenly mistook a gun for a taser. We obviously saw that footage at the time when she shouts taser, taser, taser. But of course, that death, it sparked protests and anger. It spilled over into clashes between police and protesters. And of course, here, life is starting to return to some kind of sense of normalcy after the Derek Chauvin trial, but we still have these scars, these high-profile deaths that have, of course, made such an impact in the city of Minneapolis.
And that was Dan Williams reporting from Minneapolis. The U.S. Senate's passed legislation to combat the rise of hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the bill sends a message to the Asian American community that the government has heard their concerns and will respond to protect them.
This legislation sends a dual message to our Asian American community. We will not tolerate violence and bigotry against you. And to those who perpetrate the violence and bigotry, we're going to pursue you to the full extent of the law.
The measure would expedite the review of hate crimes and provide support for local law enforcement. The bill also directs the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services to issue guidance raising awareness about hate crimes. Senator Mazie Hirono, who sponsored the bill, praised the overwhelming support that it received during the vote.
I cannot tell you how important this bill is to the AAPI community, who often has felt very invisible in our country, always seen as foreign, always seen as the other. And for them to experience a kind of hatred against them through no provocation on their part.
Police have noted an uptick in such crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders during the coronavirus pandemic. The House is expected to consider a similar bill in the coming weeks in response to thousands of reported violent incidents in the past year. NASA's Ingenuity helicopter successfully completed its second Mars flight on Thursday, achieving a higher maximum altitude, longer duration, and sideways movement. The new flight, following the first one on Monday, lasted 51.9 seconds and the helicopter climbed to 5 meters. After the helicopter hovered briefly, its flight control system performed a slight tilt, allowing the craft to move sideways for 2 meters. Ingenuity arrived on Mars on February the 18th, attached to the belly of NASA's Perseverance rover. The helicopter is a technology demonstration with a planned test flight duration of up to 30 Martian days. French Prime Minister Jean Castex says domestic travel restrictions will be lifted on May 3rd following a month-long COVID-19 lockdown. France will reopen secondary schools on the same day as the country takes its first steps toward exiting the lockdown. He also says some businesses, including bars, restaurants, and cultural venues, may open in the middle of May. The French Prime Minister says 20 million people will have received their first shot of a COVID-19 vaccine by the middle of May. Meantime, the country's 7-day average of new infections per day stands at more than 31,000, falling below 32,000 for the first time since March. The number of people in intensive care units with COVID-19 has risen to nearly 6,000, and that's the second highest figure of this year. France has announced a 10-day quarantine for travelers from Brazil, Argentina, Chile, South Africa, and India, starting this Saturday, and that's due to surging infections in those countries. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, the Chinese president has called on the international community to work together on climate change.
Say, it would be a surprise if one of them doesn't take the Oscar.
I give up. Come out of there, you. Sure. I'll open the other door now, Sergeant. All right, Lynn. Looks like you got them, Sergeant. Yes, we have everything under control now. Well, King seems to have taken all the fight out of Maisie. Yeah, King saved the sergeant from Maisie's bullet. Make him go away. Okay, easy, fella. Watch your boy. Look in that closet, Lynn. Right, Sergeant. Hey, here's the sack of gold. Good. Hey, you can't. We heard plenty while we waited outside, Maisie. We arrest you and your gang in the name of the Crown for robbery. Later, I'm sure the additional...
Not too badly for a relatively, the second largest country in the world that's got massive density, all of that. But then the last 2 weeks, some of the numbers are just crazy, like 250,000 new cases a day, 300,000 new cases a day. Like there was a time not that long ago that we were trying to get vaccines from India. And now India is in the exact opposite position where they're pleading with the United States to send them vaccines because India can actually produce vaccines. So the issue of India is really worrisome. And so there had been a lot of pressure being placed on Canada, on the Trudeau government to stop flights from India. And finally today they announced that they had. Part of that is we have a lot of people of Indian ancestry in this country who do travel to India, and it could be for a family funeral or it could be for business, or your definition of what essential travel is may be very different from my definition of essential travel.
One of the conversations we've had this week that you wouldn't know with the guests that we've had on the show even tonight is actually a Sikh History Month in Canada, a Sikh Heritage Month in Canada. Yeah. And I would imagine that's part of the decision to say, look, this is the country where that faith is centralized. And by the way, now we're about to shut it down. That optically can't look good either.
Yeah, but eventually you have to make a call that India is now the biggest hotspot in the world for COVID. And the amount of flights coming in, you have to stop them. And that could not have been an easy decision by the government.
25 DC. Help protect your country. This message is brought to you as a public service.
Ending. Mr. Deby seized power in a coup more than 30 years ago. Clashes in East Jerusalem between far-right Jewish activists, Palestinians and Israeli police have left more than 100 people injured. Tensions have been building on Jerusalem's streets for several nights after a number of race hate incidents. The US Senate...
And I think the people in Ontario accepted that. So I used my focus group. I'm based in Calgary. My mother lives in Newmarket, Ontario. She's my focus group. And she is...
Science of one.
Yeah, the science of one. And, I mean, she's a flip-flop voter. She's someone who voted for Harper, voted for Trudeau, voted for Kathleen Wynne, but she despises Doug Ford. Like, just despises him. But had the election been last fall, she would have voted for Doug Ford because of his COVID response. So we need to recognize some of the positive features.
From Quaker Pop Wheat and Quaker Pop Rice. So long. This is Mutual, Radio Network for all America.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across in their papers to determine whether they should really be out. And if you're a person of color, this idea of carding has a long bad history, particularly in the Toronto area. And now you're going to extend that to the rest of the province, and to have the police departments then coming out publicly going, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's also not very good. They were probably right to say that they weren't going to go around carding people. But yeah. Do you want the police to basically tell the premier, no, we're not going to do that?
Well, one of the most ironic photos that I saw was, I think it looked like it was a Walmart, but the essential items only thing. Yeah. And one of the items that was not considered essential that was roped off was masks. Which was ironic, and it might have been a joke, but I mean, in the spirit of all the confusion, you get it.
Yeah, and so they reversed course the next day because there was such a massive outrage. And then the premier goes missing. And it's like, where is Doug Ford? Where is Doug Ford? Well, then we find out that within his own office, there was a COVID case. So he was self-isolating. Just like, there's not enough eyes in irony for all of this. And
you find out, are you surprised by that? Let me ask you a quick question, though, because, you know, whenever COVID's come close to us, I mean, you work at the university, although you haven't been there the same amount, but whenever COVID comes close, my kids get a positive case in a classroom. Now they're close contacts, so they're at home for 2 weeks. When it hits us and it hits home, it changes our perspective. And after all of these sort of unfolded in hindsight, I went, well, no wonder they panicked. It hit them right at home for the first time.
And maybe that's what it's going to take, is for people that Ford personally knows, works with, the fact that he's now having to isolate may change some of the policies that come through. But you know, who's advising him, and is he taking some of that advice? Because I go back that we've been struggling with COVID over the last year, but now there are things that we know and there are things that we still don't know, but we know outdoor transmission is not as big an issue as indoor transmission. And the real problem is when you put large groups of people together indoors. And so why ban kids going to parks?
It seems like a strange thing to do, but boy, they've come back today. Today's presser today, he was emotional during it. He did apologize. One of the interesting things for me, this is your lane, not mine, so correction please, but is that it seemed to me like Ontario voters liked a conservative approach with a human touch that he was bringing in the beginning. And that makes me wonder, when you look at Jason Kenney, who is the least connective human on the planet when it comes to politics and the way he does pressers, maybe there's something to be learned from the way he's been delivering.
The person that I could compare when I was watching Ford today was Ralph Klein, the former Alberta premier, who had a great gift for admitting a mistake. He would say, I stepped on a snake, quickly reverse himself, and people go, that's Ralph. He's thinking of us. Then you look at a person like Jason Kenney, who has got a lot of skills, but empathy, apology, and that ain't him, which is why throughout this whole COVID, I talked about the spike in support for Doug Ford and then his dramatic drop in support. Jason Kenney never got that spike. It's been downhill the whole way. And Jason Kenney must have been very thankful for Doug Ford over the last week, because it has changed the page. Even though cases are going up, hospitalizations are not as bad per capita in Alberta as they are in Ontario, but we're still in a very dangerous situation here. And then we've got the vaccine. There's a lot of positive news about the vaccine. We're at close to 11 million Canadians who have got at least one shot. I'm one of those 11 million. We have gone from being, 40th, 50th in the world to in the top 7 in vaccination rollout. But this new variant and the new cases and the new hospitalizations, they're going up at the same time. So there's this race that's occurring between vaccinations and cases and hospitalizations. And I'm hoping the vaccinations are going to win this race, but it's a race right now.
It is. Well, let me ask you this question. So in that same conversation in Ontario, there's sick days, paid sick days. In Ontario, Doug Ford is putting through the dryer on it, but then BC's budget doesn't really even include it as a talking point at all, and nobody's saying anything. So how in the political landscape of all these things do some of these folks get to sidestep these big conversations, and other folks, they just take it right in the nose?
And that's a very difficult question, and the standards are not always the same. The situation in Ontario is worse than the situation in BC. I think that is one of them. The nature of the sort of workplaces in Ontario, the manufacturings and the warehouses do not exist to the same extent in BC, hence the idea of the sick days. But the other is, quite frankly, partisanship. If you are an NDP government, like John Horgan is, you get more credit for these sorts of things, whether you deserve it or not, based on your background and based on other things that you have done, than if you are a conservative government like Doug Ford. We're seeing the same sort of partisan battle taking place in Alberta, but yesterday we actually saw the two parties coming together. In question period, Rachel Notley talked about workers being given 3 hours of paid time to go get vaccinated. Jason Kenney, instead of doing what he normally does, which would dismiss that, said, that's a really good idea. I'll think about that. Let me talk to my people. By the evening, they passed this into legislation in the span of about half an hour. So it takes a constructive comment from the NDP, and they haven't always been constructive. Sometimes they've gotten their own soapbox and waved their little finger, but here's a small little idea that could help. And the UCP said, we like that. We're going to do that. But that's the exception that proves the rule. So that's a longer answer to a shorter question.
Oh, I like that. But these are the things that we're thinking about in the lens. So Dwayne, Brad, I really appreciate that. There's another sort of taking ideas, thought that I had in my mind is that in the big scope of all things, the federal budget, the government says, no, it's not a pre-election budget, but there's an awful lot of elbow grease for your friends in that budget. Now, that being said, though, what I see federally right now, this is not a partisan statement about who I vote for. Let me be clear about that. I can't imagine a Canada where the Liberals don't win in an election if it happens, barring anything. I mean, we've seen the bad things happen and with the impact or lack of impact that they've had. Here's what we have. We have the Liberals who are looking at the NDP and taking the top 5 best ideas and claiming them to be their own. And then the Conservatives seem to be in complete disarray. And so with no real mainstream understanding of the party, no mainstream understanding of the leader. So, I mean, it seems to me that if it goes to an election, we're going to not be a whole lot different except for maybe a Liberal majority next time.
Oh, it was a pre-election budget. Let's not mince words. Whether that election occurs in June, as I thought it would be, but I think it would be incredibly irresponsible for anybody to have an election in June.
I think that's March, and I will admit I was very wrong with that.
But September, October, sure. And when we look at the budget, it was 2 budgets. Budget 1 was about COVID, and it was about all the economic supports that the government has provided to allow people to either work at home or who have lost their jobs. That, quite frankly, if those economic supports hadn't been in place, we'd be in the middle of a depression, if not, a revolution. Then the second was, we're going to bring in a whole bunch of pet projects that we have talked about for years or decades, and this is the time to bring them in because they're expensive, but over the overall Coke, does it matter if the budget deficit is $350 billion as opposed to $285 billion? Probably not to the average voter. So there was 2 budgets in there, and they crushed the NDP. They're taking their best ideas. The Liberals used to mock the NDP as Liberals in a hurry, saying, we'll get there, but we'll take them. And the Conservatives are stuck with talking about the deficit. Well, there would have been a deficit. The question is, how big a deficit? Would it have been, as I said, $350 billion or 285 or 290 or 300? That's a tough argument to make. And so the Liberals are well positioned right now. And on the issue of vaccinations, there was a problem with the rollout and the supply of vaccinations in February. And it probably contributed to this 3rd wave that we're dealing with now. But the vaccination rollout today is working quite well. So the Liberals are well positioned, and this budget is going to help them do that.
Well, the NDP had a lot of good ideas for the worker, and the Liberals, whether they do it or not, I mean, there's a history there too, but they're pinching those ideas and say they're their own. So they're taking those, and then they've actually got the Conservatives talking about their own carbon tax now. So to me, it looks like the Liberals have hoodwinked everybody.
Yeah, if I'm Trudeau and Freeland, I'm feeling pretty good right now. Just on the NDP though, this is not a negative. If I'm the NDP, I can say to myself, look, we're not in government, but we have an influence. We're an idea party, and our ideas are getting brought forward. That may not help them at the ballot box, but, from an outside observer, nonpartisan observer, that's an important role to have. And I think that's a message that they can get across, because they can say to potential voters, look, you may like the Liberals all you want, but if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be doing that. So you need to elect enough of us to keep their feet to the fire. And the Conservatives, as I said, you've got the deficit issue. Do they want to fight on childcare? I'm not thinking that's an easy win for them either. People love childcare, even if it's expensive. And I do like their climate plan because it was a serious climate plan. We can debate about, which is better, which has strengths, which has weaknesses. But the fact is, for the first time, we can have that debate. And so, full kudos to Aaron O'Toole But here's the problem that Aaron O'Toole has on that is who in the Conservative Party, either provincially or federally, is sticking up for this plan. I haven't heard Pierre Poilievre say anything about it. I haven't heard Michelle Rempel-Garner speak about it, or Candace Bergen say about it, or Jason Kenney, who has been asked about it and quickly pivots. Scott Moe tried to condense it in about 5 minutes. Doug Ford hasn't said anything. That tells me there's an internal problem within the Conservative Party around climate still.
Well, it is interesting when you say that, is that there is a wrestling match that's going on clearly with all those pieces. I mean, the only way to alienate voters better than to argue over childcare is probably to just go close the parks, and we've seen the outcome of that.
Yes.
Now, I would say that what you're telling me, though, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to mock your favorite hockey team, is you're basically calling the NDP the Senators, and they're the spoilers of the league, and you're a Leafs fan, so that's one place where you and I will never agree. But
well, and my big fear is that this is finally the Leafs year, and they're going to be racing through the playoffs, and the cup is in sight, and the whole season's going to get canceled because of COVID. Because they've got to come up with a new creative way to break my heart.
Dwayne Brad, Mount Royal University. He's a big hockey fan, actually. If you're going to fall.
Oops.
For a third final on the horizon, but their manager Brendan Rodgers is staying in the moment.
I can't ask for any more. The players have been outstanding, giving everything to their football, their focus, concentration, and not thinking about FA Cup. It's so important that's gone. We'll take care of that in a number of weeks' time.
4 points above West Ham, who are in fifth. There's 6 matches to play in the Premier League. West Brom are 9 points adrift of Premier League safety. In Spain, Atletico Madrid have moved back to the top of La Liga. A 2-0 victory over relegation-threatened Huesca last night sees them back on.
At last, the 16th match. Meantime, about number 1.
Our opening is imminent.
What could possibly go wrong? Island of Brian. Oh. And a box top from Quaker Puffed Wheat or Quaker Puffed Rice. Mail to Flashlight, Chicago 50, Illinois. I'll repeat, that's Flashlight, Chicago 50, Illinois.
To take up these challenges together. They're independent, so you can count, as you understand, on the mobilization of France and my personal involvement in ensuring the coherence of our agenda that France and Europe intends to lead up to the international level. I thank you.
I thank the President.
Wish I had someone to help me through this.
Guide you through your divorce. Call pound 9999. That's pound 9999.
Hiring can be challenging, but ZipRecruiter makes it fast and easy. We talked to Monica Starks, who needs
Yes, we know. We see you, Chomo. We don't care. Do your thing, stupid. That's your big hack, eh? It's not working correctly. Your hack is not working correctly, Chomo. And again, you're trying to...
Your heart stop, I'm out in a heartbeat. Always on my feet, cause niggas snake for the right price. In these dark streets, I keep it close like a nightlight. When I let it go, they taking off like a race. Niggas always rap. Why you think this mask on my face? Why you think I'm on this block making cash different ways? Dipping through these heads with shots, pushing back your waves. Your mom catching graves when my niggas sit and laugh. But it's a straight face when I stick them for the stash. Yo, cause John knows I got some stacks at my base. But I'm still robbing niggas like I'm flat on my face.
this, nigga. You're not listening to music.
Grinding, that's the motto we live by for timing. Playing games, we got no time, grind. Till our stacks so high, right? For all the niggas who are close by, if you ain't bout to please stay on the Lord's side. Big gun, eagle eye, that'll get your soul fried, grind. That's the motto we live by, right? Tell all of your folks
I tell these niggas act sick like my niggas won't air you or talk tough till you see me creeping in your rear view. So I dare you, if it's me you wanna harm G. Shots make your heart stop, I'm out in a heartbeat. Always on my feet cause niggas sneak for the right price. So in these dark streets I keep it close like a nightlight. When I let it go they taking off like a race. Niggas always rap, why you think this mask on my face? Why you think I'm on this block making cash different ways? Nipping to these heads with shots pushing back your waves. Your mom catching graves when my niggas sitting at. But it's a straight face when I stick them for the stash. Yo, cause John knows I got some stacks at my base. But I'm still robbing niggas like I'm flat on my face. Still shooting shots, no shoes, get them laced. Do the scene dirty, get away with no trace.
Grinding, that's the motto we live by for timing. Playing games, we got no time, grind. Till our stacks so high, right? For all the niggas who are close by, if you ain't bout to please stay on the Lord's side. Big gun, eagle eye, that'll get your soul fried, grind. That's the motto we live by, right? Tell all of your full sides. Yo, I'll ride out for the close ones. Crunch time, do time for the close ones. When it comes down in the long run, you niggas broke, I'm the man with the long gun. You're fucking with the wrong one. If my niggas broke, I'ma break. I'ma get you smoked out like a dope caddy. Nigga owe you from this chrome lead. You owe me, pay me, or I flip that. Anything I find is mine, then I'm a jack. Certain niggas shouldn't chip, better off with a jack. Certain niggas shouldn't grip, freeze when they see fans. Freeze when they see coonies. But it's nothing like the movies. Bunch of young dudes with nothing but a tune. But we still on our fuck early. And the streets done cuff me. I'm counting money, got me feeling so lucky. Still feeling cursed cause I sleep with a duppy. You niggas are sweet and me I'm on my munchies. I mean on my grunchies. So come try slum me. I love guns and my gun loves me. Strapped by my side like a wife and a hug. Clean shit, nice shit, no kid cutting. Rubber band money, stacked by the 50s. Come try jack me, I brought the strap with me. I brought the strap with me. Brought it with me.
Someone's going to be at this all fucking night unless I just prove that, yes, I do in fact see it. See what's confusing him? You see what you're doing? You're breaking the thing you're trying to use to break the thing. You don't make any sense, Shomo. So I'll break down what's happening, stupid. You're using the thing all the time, and I don't respond all the time, do I? I don't talk about it all the time because it's not working all the time. Right. But I must be lying because human beings can see like this and stare at people's mouths like you do, right? Right. So you're going to keep testing you don't believe unless I actually show you. You can see the feedback from what you're doing is nothing. You're making a menu bar go up and down over and fucking over. So what? And again, completely missing the concept. I press start on the live video. I know the camera's on. I know it's on. You're not spying on me. You didn't hack your way in. You didn't trick me. I'm not doing what you want on the screen.
When it comes to money, I'm in for these screws. My niggas rob niggas, then they bring me their jewels. I used to ask God for things, but I would never get it. Now I'm just stealing and ask God for forgiveness. You worry about the wrong man, I'm the shooter. Give a man an inch, and he think he the ruler. There's no I in team, there is a me. American dream to believe it, you gotta be a slack. I know it's bad, but I'm high anyway. Eat healthy, stay fit, die anyway. Gotta pray what I don't get. Cause when God talk back to me,
Show me my eyes shut. That's it. I'm looking at the screen as it is.
Like a ventriloquist, never see my lips move. Throwing money up, never get spinny bitch.
Our audio is going to cut out any second. Because his biggest trigger is just, so if you heard the line in the song there, it's literally, yeah, keep it up. So if you heard the line in the song there, it's literally what he's doing. And it's, I'm being bad because I'm a kid that makes his property and his brain is broken. He's been at this 30 some odd years. And he cannot get over the fact that he didn't get what he wanted or something. I don't know. Have fun getting that software off your phone.
Back and even go skinny dipping. I started with nothing and still had most of it. I'm pulling out hammers like jumping Jehoshaphat. I can't remember the last time I got something. Your guns is decoration, nigga, so stop fronting. It's 50 fingers, I'm maniac depressive. I'm passive aggressive. You better spread the message. You know who the best is. Better have your best. I'm good, big, black, and ugly. I call that bitch precious. I sweat on my nose. They say that I'm an evil, bro. I'm a warlock. I see things and dream in color. You think it can't happen till you got flesh. You're supposed to make it right. But believe me, 3 laughs, we keep it clean with the whips. Clean them with the guns. Stash all 100. The ones. Kush roll sticky. Niggas smoke guns. Grown man, P.I. Dad, you like sons, I don't give a shit, give a shit. Oh, we don't give a shit, give a shit. I don't give a shit, give a shit. Oh, we don't give a shit, give a shit. I know the hood like I came back so hard, Sunday night. Must be an act of God.
Yeah, the whole thing freezes up and locks and waits. I keep telling you, it's network malware. You need a better internet connection for that to work.
People say to leave you much worse. Can't believe they can't see through how you be fucking. You know the cost of anything, but you value nothing. And even if a bitch got a fucking make you use a mother nature game, you can fuck all the time taking. I heard everybody out my hotter. I believe in horoscopes, nigga, my sign is valid. Listen, nigga, I'll make a deal with you. Stop lying, me on the start telling the truth about you. About my hip-hop niggas. If I hit 5 bitches, 6 bitches back. Now it's up for 2 wishes. And I'ma keep grinding till they close the curtain. I don't know what makes you so wet. Nigga, it's burn, nigga, it's burn. I carry so much people think it was a Western. Violence ain't the answer. You need to rephrase the question. Yeah, I was born to be a pessimist. Even my blood type is B-type negative. The truth go quiet and the night every day like it should last. But we keep it right. We keep it clean. Whips, clean the gun. Stash all 100. The ones. Kush roll sticky. Niggas. Grown man, P.I. Sit your little bitch ass down, nigga. Jesus, you can't spell ball without the AR. Call me from AR. Taking helicopters down with a little laser. Hand the cannon, I'm holding bigger than a fucking mega. Yaga, the liquor for the shots to make you stagger. To my little brother, it's like he loves my partners. Real body, boy, big, beyond boss. But this empire, it's not like rocks. These are enemy lines, nobody can cross. Rappers in a battle with strategies. So clips like a bitch's wig diction. Murder gang sick shit. Got me reading the words as of my victim lip sync. Fuck, get your same murder. Niggas know I'm running through the streets of beef like the hamburger with the burner. No food serving. Sitting in the vehicle, plotting on people, taking your prized possession like a reaper, kneeling with the hammer, call it Tim Tebow, holding on the hammer, call it illegal. Everything I'm doing is illegal. Everything I'm doing is illegal. Kneeling with the hammer, call it Tim Tebow, holding on the hammer, call it Home Depot. I'm at the bar ordering a Heineken, waiting for the scene to fall back. My headphones on. 719. Yeah.
I'm a native today, I'll be a native tomorrow. I'm a native in my joy and a native in my power. I'm a native in my hurt, even more in my healing. In the morning I rise and give thanks for the feeling on that day. I'm blessed with the enemy tests until I'm brand new word. And that nonsense that he's lived in the world. I'm little pixie suicide, so until the day I die, from them I rise and the distribution of percent dollars all protected. That gets connected. All the time with my people can't fade away now. Everything you're supposed to apologize Thursday for new COVID hours and closing playgrounds last Friday. He says the provincial government was trying to keep people indoors, but acted too hastily.
All I hear is limit mobility, and we moved any time. You know, if I make a mistake, I correct it immediately, which we did on the weekend.
The government had announced the new restrictions amid soaring COVID-19 cases, and critics were especially incensed at allowing police to stop people at random and ask why they were calm. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is promising Canada will slash its greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to...
I can see that. I'm looking right at the screen, watching the edits. Yeah, keep it up and down. Yep. Yep, that's how creative you are. The same thing over and over. So I'm watching the edits as they're happening. You're not psyching out anybody. You're using Face App. Wow. And some malware you got off a kitty fucking porn site. Wow. You're such a big hacker, bro.
719.
So far, I've called everything you do before you do it, because that's how predictable you are. And it takes like 5 or 10 fucking minutes of you doing this to accomplish what you're trying to do. Why don't you leave your threatening chat messages anymore, dog?
When you love the gunshot ceases.
Double up.
Southside, get close, we get close when we ride in. We get close when we ride in. Don't get close, we get close when we ride in. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding. I'm right at the spot where the cops can't find nobody knows. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At the spot where the cops can't find them. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding. I'm right at the spot where the cops can't find them. Low key. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At the spot where the cops can't find them. Living life as a fugitive who really wants to hurt me. Enough people following me. My old fam dissing me. Love is like a mystery. I ain't got shit to be. I'm on my own. These things they care if I fucking be. God bless me and I ain't even in the mood to squeeze. Mood to squeeze. Check that figured out like the breeze. Do this rap shit with ease. Used to rock for the peace. First one to belt flow and shoot. When it's time to squeeze. First one to go OT for the longest. Get squad fishing over 20 years. Then the drop is there. Bitches looking at tender life and he's still living, he's still crippin'. God bless my niggas in that cold fridge. You screaming DDS. Don't get close when them brains hit the front page or back sheets. My wife used will blow get focus and have them switched up all in 1 second. Focus and have them switched up all in 1 second. Don't get close, we get close.
Yeah, my name is Riley, son. But you know, niggas call me AKA Riley Escobar. You know what I'm saying? Cause I be in the street.
Don't get close.
That's full effect, and the status members will get you. I'm back in action, slashing these raps who wanna act. As a matter of fact, it's slashing for slacking up on the set. Send them sentimental words like I'm a sensible cat. Sing a song, a slice of bonus, it's a piece of my set. Set the trap, cause I'm a savage, you the salmon I catch. 100
by the way, to watch Talladega Nights. I had never seen it.
Even by the time of the Northern Song Dynasty, more than 1,000 years ago, there were already many varieties of chrysanthemums being cultivated in China. Kaifeng, Henan,
Another
was
thing
the
white
capital
people did
of the
not
Northern
bring
Song
to us.
Dynasty for 100.
Then add in your mushroom. Something fun. Something more.
Of coronavirus. Tell us more about what you see as and what you call callousness and incompetence.
Thank you, Paula, for having me.
MCs in the thread of my net. The smell of death in my direction is starting to affect them. The fact of the matter is I'm a master, it's automatic. The idiomatic addict is at it, cause I just had it with those who say the damage. I don't condone the domes, you don't control and manage the flows to cause a panic, so step back. If your head is shaking, don't come back. I snap heads back till they cook up from right hooks, and right hooks are demons. Oh, I need you to leave shook. Never see a person scalped in the daylight. Imagine how we act in the middle of the night. A bunch of savages running through your city like a pack of rabid dogs. I'ma unleash the pities, pissing on your property, marking our territory. After it gets dark is when it starts to get gory. Murdering MC streets on the beat, 'cause getting murdered on the microphone is worse to me. Spitting a high caliber, written's above average. My lyrics are like algebra, getting that mathematics. Putting the clip in the automatic pistol whip, I'm strong static. I ain't never taking a break at all, 'cause I ain't asthmatic. Always rolling up a pile of grass. You can ask Patrick, hope you got a doobie with some hash in your past. Take a couple of dabs and I'm passionate, smashing it. Best pass up tap since the last visit.
Check this recital, yes, I'm idle, never idle. We don't acquiesce and carry stress or harbor rivalry. Been grinding full strength, so we landed here and run to be my destiny. Conspires and continues to inspire me. My eyes and my mind remain open. It's like a black hole to the soul, and no, I'm not joking. It's real. I maintain and incorporate how I feel, where I'm from, why I'm ill. Castle Mountain, Castle Hill, in that whole area. It was the killer, man, my bro was on a barrier. It's getting scarier. I mean, it's scarier. It was on the barrier. Build it up, 47 feet up in the area. Cause I'm coming through and my team is damager. Real game, about to fuck you up, it's spoken word. It's dum-dums taking over in the common world. But here we are, gonna rise up and be the conquerors.
306 in the 604. Had to hit the YBR for that sushi raw. Ooh, let me tell them just who we are. Nowadays we got made to be movie stars. Do be lit, bumping funk doobie gets the Tahiti treat, spilling on my coochie fit. True MC, I don't care how cool you is. If you grip that mic, you better do that shit. Got the licks like, damn, who that kid? That's when I take time to tell them who I is. It's the DR, don't knock for me, y'all. Out in YYC where they all fucking we are. But me, y'all, shit, came straight from the past. Rose from the earth with a face full of ash. Old man eagle sees snakes in the grass. Swoop down, claws to the face of the man.
When I hit it, I split it, get it right up against fitted. I'm deadly past the limit, you turkey feathers or gimmicks. Play school rhymes and sublimics, I'm like totemic expression. Sacred mathematic geometry, all in a freestyle session. Or like Vine Deloria, I've been a wine DeLorean. Microdosing vines of euphoria and my DeLoreans. I'm like Billy Jack the Ripper with the chilly knack for rapping. I'm like really stacked
with my father, who's in his 80s, trying to get him to a hospital that was an hour away. And because that cylinder did not work as it should have, his oxygen levels dipped to a dangerous low, and he had to be taken into ICU. And you know, as I rode in that ambulance, I confronted what millions of Indians are going through every single day. And you know, it's personal for me, and it's personal for so many hundreds of thousands of Indians. And yes, he's in the ICU, and in some ways I am the story that I'm reporting, and I think that's true for almost all my fellow citizens today.
And if I can ask you, not to press you because I can hear the emotion in your voice, but Barke, if you could say in a word, when you hear Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying that he's now going to hold emergency meetings on the availability of medicines and oxygen and tests too, how does that make you feel?
That all of this should have happened much earlier that the state response has been callous, that the state is missing outside the hospitals of our country, where the poor, the impoverished are helpless. They have no one to speak with. Forget getting an access to a hospital bed. I met with a woman whose daughter-in-law in her 20s died, and not just could she not get a bed in time, when her daughter-in-law died, she couldn't get an ambulance to take that body to a cremation ground. And at the cremation grounds, there is no space left. So yes, all of this is too little too late.
Barker, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Take you to Germany now, where a massive fraud is the subject of a parliamentary inquiry. Later today, Chancellor Angela Merkel herself is to appear in front of a parliamentary committee investigating the Wirecard scandal. The company went bust last summer after discovering that 2 billion euros of corporate cash did not exist. In the latest revelation, Wirecard staff admit to taking millions of euros of cash out of the group's Munich headquarters in plastic bags. Well, we can speak now to Dan McCrum, Frankfurt correspondent for the Financial Times, who's been following events closely. Hello, Dan. First of all, what are the questions which Angela Merkel has to answer?
Well, I think what the Wirecard scandal has exposed is a failure of institutions at several different levels in Germany. And so there are personal questions for the lobbying which was undertaken on behalf of this company, Wirecard, a technology company which was seen very much as a German champion until it collapsed. But there's also questions of why there was such repeated failures by several different institutions across the German government.
Okay, it begs the question, how can a company, a success story, an apparent success story, suddenly find such a colossal hole in its accounts?
Well, one of the lessons from the whole Wirecard scandal is that you can have this criminal enterprise, a fraud from top to bottom, hiding in plain sight. And for a long time, Wirecard wasn't investigated. And I think it reflected a failure of imagination. People couldn't look at these executives, look at this, what seemed to be a legitimate enterprise, and see that there was a shimmer, that there was nothing really there. And so the lesson that is being learned here is that sort of these were criminals after all, and the failures of the German institutions were in particular the police investigated me and my colleagues at the Financial Times, and the various critics who attempted to expose the fraud over the years.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Tell us a little bit more. It was investigations, also attacks on social media and so on. Tell us a bit more.
So what we saw is a tactic which a lot of companies have started to use, which is that whenever they face criticism about their accounts, they accuse the critics of being self-interested short sellers, people who are just betting against their share price and indeed trying to manipulate it. And what you saw with Wirecard, and again you've seen with other companies, is they use the whole Trumpist fake news allegation to dismiss our reporting and to wrap everything up into a conspiracy that somehow we were trying to bring down this sort of great of German industry. And this is something that you see, we've lost authority, and the company was able to use that to say, hang on a second, you should investigate these guys. And there was this whole conspiracy put together that supposedly we had leaked our stories to short sellers. And the amazing thing was that for a very long time, the German police seemed to buy that.
Yeah, those days behind. You talked about lessons to be learned. Have they been learned, do you think?
I actually think some of the lessons are starting to be learned. I mean, there's a view that sort of financial fraud had effectively been decriminalized in Europe. There have been very few prosecutions of major fraud in any real European country for quite a long time. But now what we're seeing with the Greensill scandal, which has caught up David Cameron and Sanjeev Gupta recently, is that in this instance, the German authorities have started to be very proactive. They have investigated Greensill Bank quite aggressively following Financial Times reporting and of other papers of problems there. So it does seem like the German authorities at BaFin have taken the lessons of Wirecard on board. And we are also seeing, as a result of this parliamentary inquiry in Germany, a wholesale rebuilding of some of the institutions which are supposed to be sort of offering oversight of companies like this.
Dan McCrum, Frankfurt correspondent for the Financial Times. Thank you very much indeed.
Let's get the sports headlines now with James Gregg.
Leicester City are inching closer to a Champions League return. To launch on Saturday morning for the people that's binged it all over yesterday and are looking for a little bit more. But basically, this it takes place in a world where something called the shadow fold has kind of.
Enjoy this delicious, nourishing treat. What?
During the Three Kingdoms period, Jun Hui, a minister of the Wei Kingdom, attributed 5 virtues to the chrysanthemum on the basis of its shape, color, character, flowering period, and health benefits.
Health benefits.
We'll be able to finish quite few digital books 1 month. That's a lot. I cannot do that. This is also the reason that this impressed me, because I tried getting some of the books that I would like to.
Governments must gear their financial incentives and subsidies towards sustainable production methods that do not harm the environment. It is clear that environment ministers alone cannot.
Financial results, so are profits up?
No, they're not actually. They're down very slightly, but demand is up, sales are up. What's perhaps pulling the profits down is that Intel's been investing a lot of money recently.
Stand entirely to him.
Yeah. And he also knows that me and Fargo work for you. He acted mighty funny when I came in the store. Tried to pump me about why I was buying so much grub.
By this time, he's probably shut off his mouth to Sergeant Preston.
It looks like we're really in the soup.
You know whether Preston followed you when you left the store?
I ain't sure. I looked down the street when I come in the cafe, but there were too many people milling around.
Well, I guess we'll have to do something about that red coat.
Such as what?
I've got an idea. You know that cabin you and Fargo were living in last summer when we were panning gold?
Sure I know it. Why?
Take your team and drive there, but don't go the shortest way. Circle around through the hills.
I'll come.
While you're doing that, I'll make a beeline for the cabin, so I'll be there by the time you arrive.
Yeah. Then what?
If Preston doesn't trail you, you can go on to the mine from there, no harm done.
And what if he does trail me?
Then we'll know he's wise to us, and we'll give him a nice, warm reception.
I like your idea, Zach. I like it a lot.
So do I. Now get going.
Meanwhile, Sergeant Preston and Vic Tyler had taken up a position from which they could watch the front door of the cafe.
Here comes Pug now, Sergeant. He's leaving the cafe.
Yeah, she's going over to his team.
Looks like he's heading straight out of town.
Come on, we get our teams and follow him.
Right.
2 hours later, Sergeant Preston and Vic halted their teams in a small cabin in the hills.
There's Pug's team, Sergeant. I wonder if him and Fargo live in this cabin.
What I'm wondering is why it took such a long way around to get here.
Maybe he figured on throwing us off his trail.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
There's glass in that door?
What can I do for you, Marty?
You can let us in, and then you can answer a few questions.
Sure. Why not? Wait a minute. The dog stays outside.
What's the matter? He won't hurt you?
I don't like his looks.
All right, King. Stay outside.
Now, what's on your mind?
Ever hear of a man called Fargo?
Sure. I've heard of him.
Any idea where I can find him?
No, I haven't.
What do you expect to do with all those supplies?
Eat them. Like I told Josh Hobart, I got a big appetite.
Why'd you come to this cabin?
I live here.
Nobody lives here. The place is stripped bare.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I'm just moving in.
Look, mister, in case you don't realize it, I'm here on police business. The man's disappeared. He may have been murdered. It's obvious that you and Zach Salem know something, and you're both covering up. Now, are you going to talk, or shall I take you back to Dawson and hold you on suspicion of murder?
Mr. Preston, you too, Tyler.
Zach Salem, huh?
That trapdoor came in mighty handy here, boss.
That's right. Get your gun out, Bug, and keep me covered while I climb out of here.
It'll be a pleasure.
Made a big mistake, Preston. You shouldn't have come snooping around.
What do we do with him, Zach? Kill him?
Not yet for a while, anyway. I've got a better idea.
Such as?
We can use a couple extra hands at the mine, can't we?
Yeah, we can at that. We'll be able to get the gold out faster that way.
All right, let's tie their hands and take them out there.
Now, what about that dog of Preston's?
What about him?
That mutt looks mighty vicious to me. We'll have to do something about it.
Where is he?
Outside. I didn't want to let him in for fear he might get your scent and give the game away.
We'll shoot him when we leave here. Now, come on. Let's get these two tied up.
A few minutes later, the crooks finished tying their prisoners' hands, prepared to leave the cabin.
Now then, you two, start marching. Hug it. You open the door.
All right. But watch out for that dog.
Don't worry. He won't make trouble with a bullet in his head.
King was waiting just outside the door.
Okay. You missed him. He got away. He's skulking out there in the underbrush.
Forget him. Let's get moving. Get that teams lined up.
Night was falling as the travelers entered a narrow, steep-walled canyon, thickly overgrown with trees and underbrush. They halted their teams in front of a lonely cabin with lighted windows.
All right, you two, get on your feet. We're going inside.
Inside the cabin, a haggard, unshaven man sat eating his meal at the table. Across the room from him sat a heavy-set, black-bearded man holding a cocked revolver. As the prisoners entered the room, the man at the table jumped up from his chair with a startled expression.
Vic, how'd you get here? Holy smoke, it's my brother Stan.
Long time no see, gents. Howdy, Fargo.
Hello, Zach. Howdy, Pug.
Howdy, Fargo.
Who in thunder are these two Jaspers?
Well, it's a long story. The young guy's name is Vic Tyler. He came up to the Yukon to find his brother. And he got this Marty to help him. They started snooping around, so naturally we had to take steps.
What are you gonna do with them?
I figured we might as well put them to work. With 3 guys working the mine instead of just one, we'll be able to get the gold out a lot faster.
That's a right smart idea.
The prisoners' hands were untied, and then they were allowed to eat, while the crooks sat guarding them with drawn revolvers. When the meal was over, the prisoners were herded into a small back room, the door of which bore a hasp and padlock.
All right, inside you 3. Right. Sleep tight, gents. Don't make any trouble unless you're hankering for a little going over.
There were no windows in the room, and as the door was closed and padlocked, the 3 prisoners were plunged into total darkness. They conversed in hushed voices.
Stan, for the love of Mike, what's this all about?
It happens I found a lost Indian gold mine. Made the mistake of talking about it at the Mad Dog Cafe.
What happened?
Zach Salem heard me talking. Told Fargo and Pug to follow me. Trailed me here to the mine and captured me.
You mean they've been keeping you prisoner ever since?
Well, that's right, Sergeant. Make me work the mine for them. Fargo and Pug take turns guarding me.
Why, the dirty polecats.
Where is the mine?
Just a little ways from the cabin. Tunneled into the wall of the canyon. You can't see the opening. It's all covered over with brush.
Well, how are we ever going to bust loose from these outholes?
We may not be in as bad a spot as you think, Vic. I'm counting on help from a certain porter.
What do you mean by that?
Are you talking about it now? I'll wait till the morning and see what happens. The following morning, the prisoners were released from the locked room and given breakfast. Then Fargo and Pug prepared to take the prisoners out to the mine and put them to work.
All right, gents. Get moving outside.
Yeah. It's time to start earning that grub you've just been stowing away.
Fargo kept the 3 prisoners covered with a gun, while Pug opened the door. As the men emerged into the cold morning air, Sergeant Preston cast a keen glance at his surroundings. The cabin stood in a small clearing with its back almost up against the canyon wall. On the right, a well-beaten path led away from the cabin, evidently to the mouth of the mine.
Hug, you go on ahead and open up the mine. I'll ride herd on these critters.
Okay.
Looks like we'll have to get some more tools to keep the 3 of you busy.
At that moment, Sergeant Preston saw what he'd been looking for. A slight movement in the underbrush bordering the path. Fargo was walking behind the prisoners, keeping them covered with his leveled revolver, while Pug had already reached the end of the path and was clearing away the brush and shrubbery which were used to camouflage the mine entrance. The sergeant waited until they were a little closer to Pug. And then he shouted,
King! King!
King came charging out of the underbrush and sprang at Fargo's back, knocking him to the ground. Without even glancing around to see what had happened, Sergeant Preston darted forward to deal with Pug.
Oh, no, you don't, Preston.
Pug tried to draw his gun and fire, but the Mounty's hand clamped his wrist with a grip of steel. Two men struggled desperately, raining blows on each other with their free hands. King savage attack. As Vic tried to dislodge him, Zach Salem rushed out of the cabin. Stan shouted a warning to the sergeant.
Look out! Here comes Zach Salem. He's got a gun. Yeah, I'll get you first. Understand?
As he spoke, Preston summoned up all his strength and knocked Pug unconscious with a single terrific punch. That moment, Zach fired. Stan had flung himself to the ground, and the shot went over his head. Before Zach could take careful aim at Preston, the Mountie too had dropped to the ground and picked up Pug's gun. Zach's shot had gone wild, but the Mountie's bullet had found its mark.
Man alive! What a close call. That's when they got Fargo's gun, Sergeant. Get this dog away from me! All right, King. Let him up, boy. Vic, keep Fargo covered while I take a look at Zach.
Zach had fallen face down. Sergeant Preston picked up his gun, then rolled the crook's body over to examine his wound.
How about it, Sergeant?
Is he dead?
Yeah.
No, but he's badly wounded.
I reckon it'll be a long time before he's in shape to pull any more crooked stuff.
Yes, 10 years at least. And the same for Fargo and...
I couldn't figure out what you meant last night when you said you were expecting help from a certain quarter. But I sure know now. You knew King would follow us here.
That's right, Vic. I was sure he would. King's always at hand when I need him most, aren't you, fella? Thanks to you, old boy. This case is closed.
In just a moment, Sergeant Preston will give you a preview of Wednesday's adventure, Jose's Return. Hooray, says Mother, when she discovers that the real bargain in breakfast cereals is delicious Quaker puffed wheat or Quaker puffed rice.
Yes, indeed. It's a deluxe family breakfast. Not like the bar they don't enjoy.
The youngsters go for wheat and rice shot from guns because they're exploded up to 8 times normal size. They're extra crisp and
that second one is so true. I remember vividly working at HMV on New Year's, and a guy walking in and going, "Oh man, you got to work on New Year's?" And I went, "Yep, because you're here." And then he proceeded to yell at me because I couldn't give him another season of Heartland for a double deal. Nice guy. This one though, this is the one I relate to the most.
Do you have any coupons for? That's what I ask you. We all have our roles to play. Wait, think you just got a cheat code for the store? Oh yeah, I gave a few 100% offs back here for the smart customers. Bring your own and scan.
Oh, I feel that one. Working in an electronics store all the time. Somebody brings up an $80 game. It's like, hey, you knock it down a little bit for me? You got any coupons back there? Mm-hmm. No. I don't. Do you? So, yeah.
I've always been amazed by that question, by the way.
What amazes you about it?
Well, that when people walk into the store, I mean, there's usually some of them have big bulletin boards in the front with the coupons anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So not only could you subscribe to the email, not only could you clip them out of the paper or whatever else, not only could you get an app that just tells you what they are. Not only could you do any of those things that give you free access to save money, you expect to do it for you. I find it mind-blowing. I mean, I'm all for frugality. That's crazy.
But it's like, it's so funny because they come up and they'll ask for the coupon. I'll say no, and then I'll say, I'll tell you how you can save 15% on your purchase today, and then they'll go, no. It's only if there's a coupon. If there's no work involved, I'll take the deal. But if there's work involved, gone.
Stay safe and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, brings you Dragnet. You're at detective sergeant. You're assigned the forgery detail. A United States postal inspector comes to your office. You've received the same complaints he has. Somebody is stealing mail in your city. Your job, help get him.
Friends, compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
Fuck steals mail.
Between far-right Jewish activists, Palestinians and Israeli police have left more than 100 people injured. Tensions have been building on
Animal code from your email, or else they won't give you the deal. So it's different everywhere you go. Some make it easy, some do not.
No. Now, speaking of deals, let's talk about grocery shopping.
Oh, I'm interested.
Earlier in the show, yes, Brendan
just got a big smile on his face.
Brendan's ready to go. So Brendan admitted that he purchased groceries online for the first time. I purchased my groceries, like, Chef's Plate. I do the boxes of meals. But I saw this headline, and we might be getting played a little bit here, guys. So while grocery shopping online is insanely convenient, which you cannot deny that, Google's Consumer Matters reporter, and Drua, she looked into this, and there can be some costs, extra little costs sprinkled in there. Let's get it.
Instead of making the trip here, walking down the aisle and standing in line, for some, the convenience of grocery shopping from the comfort of your home is more appealing, saving time and the cost of gas. But before you click away, consider those delivery fees. The delivery time window for when your groceries are dropped off at your door can impact delivery fees and often vary by time slot. Short delivery time windows will often cost you more, while longer delivery windows can cut those fees in half. Free delivery is often an option, but drop-off times can be less flexible. When it comes to shopping online, keep in mind the price of items are based on your scheduled day of delivery. Some items are subject to deal expiration dates.
Everybody needs fresh food. That's why we deliver it to your door.
Then there's Instacart, a grocery and delivery pickup service partnered with participating retailers. It involves a customer ordering groceries, and the shopping is done by a personal shopper. Instacart has several fees, including delivery fees. Instacart Express members get free delivery on orders over $35 per retailer. Service fees, which go towards operational costs, and a heavy fee for, well, you guessed it, heavy items. There's also the option of tipping. 100% goes directly to the shopper delivering your order. Also, retail partners set the item prices on the Instacart marketplace, which means prices on the Instacart site may vary from in-store and may be higher in some instances. When we compared prices, we found this 4-liter jug of 2% milk on Instacart was $5.10, compared to going directly online to a major grocery retailer at $4.65. This brick of butter on Instacart, $5.65 compared to $5.15 when shopping online directly with the individual grocery store.
Instacart is here to help.
While coupons and in-store discounts are sometimes available on Instacart, Instacart also states some in-store sales and promotions may not apply.
Wow. So it seems to me to make sense to either do curbside pickup if you drive.
Yep.
And that's a very small fee because then you're paying the online price for those foods. Or use the grocery store themselves specific delivery, kind of like we look at with pizza and skip the dishes and everything else, right? Sometimes when you order a pizza and you get their pizza person to deliver it, you save some money. So, does that change your notion there, Brendan, Mr. Online grocery shopper?
Well,
let's put it down on the table. That'll be better. Yeah, that's better. Now, here we go. Now we fold the arms in here. Now the bottom part comes up this way. Now we fold it over and again. Easy, isn't it? Just follow the crease marks and you're home, Joe. Yeah. Now if you'll hand me that little box, Joe. Oh, yeah. There you go. Oh, thank you. Now, no, I guess that's too big. Well, we'll make one more fold, right? Yeah. Well, it's small enough this way, but it's too fat, isn't it? You better watch it there. You're going to tear that little sack. It's funny. I folded right over the old creases there. Too fat, isn't it? Yeah. Well, couldn't you just carry it in your pocket like that without the pouch? Sure, let's see. Slip in my coat pocket. No, that won't do, Joe. It bulges right out. It's kind of springy. Jumps out, just like a piece of bungee silk.
Yeah, it seems to.
Well, it's still lightweight, easy to handle.
Sure. Plenty easy to carry just like that.
Yeah. Well-made little pouch there. Seems a shame not to be able to use it.
You smoke a pipe?
No, you know that, just cigarette. Yeah, I'll find some use for it. Probably 100 things a fellow could use a little pouch like this for if he could just think of them, right off.
Yeah, that's right.
Riley, Romero, you want to step in here for a minute?
Right, Captain.
You fellas know Inspector Smith, Post Office Department?
Sure, how are you?
Romero?
Good to see you, Leo.
How you doing, Joe? Sit down, won't you?
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Inspector Smith's over here on that mail thief case that we've been working on.
Oh, yeah. Did you receive those reports we sent over to you yesterday?
No, I haven't been to the office yet. Came straight over here.
Well, burglary turned it over to us yesterday afternoon. Ben and I ran it down. Seems to us like it might fit in somewhere here.
Miller and Ashton have probably got your reports now. I was just going to call in. Do you mind filling me in on it?
Apartment house over on Alvarado. Landlady reported a theft of part of a mailbox out there.
Yeah, somebody stole a master panel off the front of the community mailbox at the apartment house. Figure it must have happened sometime during the night.
Oh, yeah, I believe we got something on that, too. A postman on the route reported it. That's how he's getting into the mailbox. He steals the front panel, makes a key for himself, and then on he's in business. Smart guy like we're after could put a key like that to good use. It fit a great many different mailboxes around town. Yeah, it's the same M.O. We've been on this guy for a long time. He pulled the same thing down in San Diego, was knocking down about $2,000 a month. Then he laid out. Now he's at it again up here in L.A.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, we've been getting reports of the thefts and the passing of the checks about 10 days ago.
Yeah, I know.
We've got 5 checks passed by this same thief, according to handwriting analysis. We know it's the same guy.
I've talked to the victims and the bank tellers. Description of the guy seems to tally with what you people have on him.
Yeah.
There's just one thing we haven't been able to piece out yet.
What's that, Joe?
When he steals a check, how does he know what bank to pass it on?
Well, I think we got the answer to that one.
Well, let's say that he steals a letter. We know he doesn't only hit the community mailboxes. Sometimes he goes to a private residence, fishes the letters right out of the mail slots in that case.
Yeah, he's got some kind of a gimmick he gets down in those slots with.
Yeah, that's what we figure, Leo. But we'll say after he's got a letter with a check in it. Now, it's easy enough for a good forger to put an endorsement on it, but how does he know what branch of the bank to pass it on?
Well, at some time or other, he's stealing bank statements as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he's just lucky. At the time he steals a check, there's other mail in the box, too. The victim's bank statements.
Well, as far as that goes, I suppose he's stolen more than once from the same party. He could probably get away with bank statements easy.
Well, that's it. People never seem to report anything missing in the mails until weeks after it's happened.
It's easy to see why. They're not sure anything's wrong until they wait several days. They don't want to bother us in the case of anything routine like monthly bank statements.
And in the case of a check, well, sometimes it's from a relative or someone who owes them money and they don't want to embarrass them by writing or calling to find out about it.
And I suppose in the case of anything like a dividend check, we got a couple of those, Leo.
Mm-hmm.
The people who lose them just don't think it's time for them to arrive yet, so they just wait, huh?
That's it. And that's why he's been so successful. Plus the fact that it takes about a week for any kind of check to be processed through central clearing at any bank, and then, too, the bank wouldn't necessarily know that anything was wrong at that time.
Until the bank receives a complaint from the party who missed the check, they couldn't have any way of knowing that anything was wrong.
That's right.
Tell them what you were telling me this morning, Leo.
Well, you people aren't in it deep enough to know this yet, but this guy's been hitting the same branch bank maybe 2-3 times in a row.
Not here in L.A., has he?
No, not yet. It looks to us like he's just started up his operations here in town. That's the way he worked it down in San Diego.
Well, it's easy enough to figure. If he got a teller in some bank to go along with him, someone who didn't suspect him, and since the victims reported so late, he could get away with it at least that many times at the same bank.
Yeah. If people report missing mail immediately, it'd make it a lot tougher for the thief.
That last name on him still good? Harvey Fletcher.
That's what we're going on, yeah.
We've got bulletins out to all the banks carrying that description on him, and he changed their label.
WMA, average build, 150, 160 pounds, gray eyes, about 32 to 35, well-dressed, carries a briefcase, likable personality.
That's what we got on him.
Oh, there's a little something we picked up yesterday from a bank teller. She told us the man had long sideburns, for what it's worth. You might add that.
Okay.
Don Myers in handwriting has checked through his files, Leo. They haven't got anything on him. And the stats office hasn't been able to make him on his M.O.
And we know you people are doing everything you can for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I wish we could do more.
That name, Harvey Fletcher, of the 5 checks that we've got on the guy, according to handwriting analysis on him, he's only used that name once. The rest of the time, he signs the same last name as the payee's name on the face of the check.
He passes himself off as a brother, husband, or some relation to the rightful payee.
Yeah, that's what's taking in all those bank tellers.
plus a smooth personality. He's cool, collected, all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, that figures.
Yeah, we got one day before yesterday with a little different twist. He isn't going to help us any, but here's the way he's working it in some cases. He deposits a large check to the victim's account, and then he only takes out a small portion in cash. Throws the tellers off even more.
Those for the stats, Leo. What's this? Copy to the last 5 checks that we got on the guy.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Harry.
Maya says they're all in the same handwriting. Is there anything else we can do for you, Leo? We've got all the banks in the area covered, got bulletins out on them.
Well, that's fine.
Don't think we've overlooked anything. Patrol units have been alerted.
With this latest theft of that mailbox panel, it's too bad we can't localize his operations a little.
Leo, didn't you say that if he makes a key, that key would fit any number of boxes in the city? We couldn't pin him down to one neighborhood, could we? That's right. That key will work on different mail routes. He probably knows the neighborhood around Alvarado is hot now. He'll leave it alone anyway. It's impossible to stake him out on the actual thefts of the mail. It's too bad we can't get to him through one of the banks when he cashes them. Well, your manpower and ours put together couldn't cover all the banks in L.A. at one time, but we've been spot checking throughout the city, hoping maybe to tab him just by luck.
We might get a break from one of our bulletins, maybe some tellers.
Well, I'm not sure yet. That's one of the reasons I came over here this morning, but maybe we've got a little something.
What's that?
Well, a bank out in Westwood phoned us yesterday. The teller thought she recognized the guy from his description. Didn't dawn on her till after the guy had left her window. She rushed out in time to get the license number of his car.
Well, maybe it's a break, huh?
Yeah, it looks pretty good. The check was drawn on the account of a William E. Scott, and that's the number 2 victim here in L.A.
Yeah, that's right. You got the protostat of his checks right there.
Yeah, I know. Well, everything seems to fit. This check he passed yesterday out in Westwood was probably stolen at the same time as the first one, or at least it came from this Scott's mailbox, that we know. Well, didn't this William Scott report the theft of 2 checks? I know he didn't to us. Maybe he did to you. No, he didn't. Said he couldn't be sure. He gets quite a few checks through the mail. Owns a lot of stock, gets dividends. Yeah, probably doesn't know when they come each month. Yeah, that's right. He didn't miss the first one until it was way overdue. Might even be others missing. He doesn't know for sure yet.
Well, anyway, he's positive on this latest one out in Westwood that the bank teller caught.
Sure. As soon as the bank manager called him, he knew he hadn't authorized anybody to cash any of his checks.
Does the MO see the match?
Well, that's what's got us going on it. Looks real good. Smooth operator. Deposited part of the money, took the balance in cash. The major switch in his operation was the fact that he didn't go to the victim's regular bank as he did on that first check.
It sounds good, doesn't it?
And we kind of think so. That's the reason I came over here this morning. Conway, our handwriting man, thinks it's the same as the guy we're after. He asked me to check it through Don Myers to be sure.
What signature to use on this last one?
Now, that's another part of the MO that checks out. You remember on the first check, he forged the victim's name, William Scott?
Mm-hmm.
Then he made it a second-party check by signing the phony name, George Scott, passing himself off as a nephew of the victim.
Pretty smart. He goes to this victim's regular bank, and he doesn't take the chance of being tabbed as the payee. He covers by using that nephew gimmick.
Yeah. This time he goes to a different branch. Not the regular branch the victim deals with as in the first case. He simply forges the victim's name and lets it go at that.
You doing anything on that license number?
Well, Ashton and Miller checked it out late yesterday afternoon. They're on it now.
Need any help?
Well, not so far. I'm interested in what Don Myers has to say about the handwriting. He ought to be through about now. Huh?
So give him a call.
Well, thanks, Harry.
Hello, Don. Who's this? This is Elliot. You know if Don's checked that stuff through for Inspector Smith yet? Okay, thanks, Sloan. No, that's all right. We'll get to him. Don was called out of the office for a minute. That was Sloan. He says he's sure Don's finished with it.
Oh, fine. You say when he'll be back?
He just ducked down to Thad Brown's office for a minute. I'll call down there for you.
Well, that's all right. I'll walk down there myself. I need the exercise.
Okay.
You and I walk on down with you. Well, swell. Let's go.
All right. You fellas will be back here one.
Well, sure, as soon as I check with Myers.
All right.
Which way is it from here? This hall looks the same from one end to the other.
It's this way, Leo.
Oh, okay.
This affects you like the federal building does me. I get all turned around up there.
Yeah. Well, those fellas down in San Diego had a rough go on this thing.
Yeah, I was talking to McGuire and Ormsby down there just the other day. They said they were going around in circles on it.
We broke a lot of ground for us. Checked out a lot of suspects, cleared them. Checked out all that stuff that Brereton from CII sent down.
Yeah.
You know how thorough that guy is.
It figures they've done a lot of legwork.
Friday, you say you just talked to him down there?
Yeah, that's right, Leo.
Well, then you know about all those bulletins they got on the guy. Description, exemplars of his handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Sent them to every police department in the United States.
It's a big job.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go get Don. It's right in here.
Thanks, Joe.
Right. Don?
Yeah, Joe.
Leo Smith from the post office department's waiting to see you.
Right, Joe. Just on my way back to the office.
Fine.
Oh, Don. Sorry, Leo. I had to duck out for a minute. Oh, that's all right. Did you get a chance to look that sky check over? Yeah, I did. Got a couple of things to show you back in the office. Okay, fine. Was Conway positive on this one? Well, he said he felt we had the right man, but he wanted your opinion to be absolutely sure. I couldn't be positive, but I think maybe he's your man. There's a great similarity, but too much pressure on the downstrokes. The E's, the O's. Just not too sure. They're a little different than some of the previous samples of the guy's handwriting. I can show you better back at the office. Got a few things for you.
Think there's a possibility, Don?
Let me put it this way. I won't say it is, and I won't say it isn't. Let's pick him up and find out for sure. Here we are. Go ahead, fella.
Thanks.
I've blown those things up here. Call for you, Leo. I'm afraid. Oh, thanks, Harry. Excuse me. The Smith talking. You did? We did. All right, look, why don't you bring him down a forgery detail here at the City Hall? We'll talk to him here. Right in. Right, thanks. Well, looks like the end of the trail. That was Ashton. He and Miller picked him up. He's our man, admitted the forgery.
Looks like San Diego did all the work and we get all the luck.
Anyway, we got him.
You are in the Scientific Investigation Division of a Metropolitan Police Department, the ballistics room.
You have just heard a test bullet fired from a .38 caliber revolver found in the possession of a suspect.
The test slug is removed from the ballistics box and compared with the slug found at the scene of the crime.
There they are. Side by side, they look alike, but examination will prove a world of difference.
Now, examine a Fatima. Compare it with any other king-size cigarette.
416-917-LION or go to getleo.com. That's getleo.com.
A really big story. But the planned breakaway has been criticised by Mr. Champions League himself, Carlo Ancelotti. The Everton manager has won 5 European Cups, he won 2 as a player and also 3 as a manager. He didn't like much about...
That's why if you're an Ontario homeowner, your first and last call should be to LG Home Comfort for your heating, cooling, and water needs. So get a tankless water heater and save on that 20-minute shower or flip on that air conditioner. Visit lghomecomfort.ca to learn more. Divorce can bring out the...
Is quality.
Anymore.
Ask your dealer for Fatima, the quality king-size cigarette. Best of all, long cigarettes. Start enjoying Fatima tomorrow.
In the routine solution of a case, the police officer has always benefited by the legwork of his fellow officers. In this case, the men of the San Diego Police Department, in conjunction with the Post Office Department, had done most of the spade work, and the actual apprehension of the suspect appeared to be almost too easy on our end. Even though Ben and I hadn't participated in the physical arrest of the suspect, we felt the same gratification for the speedy solution of the case as did the postal authorities. Monday, March 3rd, 3:27 p.m., Miller and Ashton of the Post Office Department brought the suspect in for questioning. The prisoner was turned over to Inspector Leo Smith. Ben and I sat in on the interrogation.
Carver Gleason, that's your true name?
Yes, sir, it is.
You say you've never been arrested before?
No, sir, I never have.
Now, you know we're going to check that out.
Yes, sir.
All right, now let's go over it again.
The same way?
That's up to you. We want the truth.
I've told you the truth. You asked me questions about stealing mail, about forging checks. You said I was down in San Diego. Well, that's not true. None of it's true.
Have you ever stolen from the mails?
No, sir, I never have. I know this is a pretty serious offense.
What makes you think forging isn't? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm not. I didn't say that, but this was the first time I've ever done anything like this. I didn't even think about the consequences.
Should have thought about them. When's the last time you were in San Diego?
I've never been there. I don't even know for sure where it is.
How long you been in Los Angeles?
About 3 months now.
Where's your home?
Akron, Ohio.
How old did you say you were?
25.
And what have you been doing since you got out here?
Well, that's just it. Nothing. Can't find a job.
Well, how you been getting by? How you been living?
Been staying down at the YMCA. Hope Street, I guess it is. What have you been doing for money? Well, my folks gave me a little when I left Akron. Thought I'd have a job by now. I didn't want to write home for any more, so when I found that check, I figured I could get away with it. I needed money, and I cashed it. Where'd you say you found it? Over on, La Street out that way, La Cienega. Is that how you say it? La Cienega, yeah. Now, what were you doing out there? Well, I was answering an ad in the classifieds, trying to find a job. I had to park the car down the street from the place, and on my way back, I found this check on the sidewalk right near the bank on the corner. Where'd you get the car? It's my father's. The car's registered in your name with California plates. How do you explain that? Well, the folks told me when I got to California to go right to the authorities and register the car if I was going to stay so I wouldn't get in any trouble. And that's where part of my money went. You got anything else you want to tell us? Well, I did it. I admit that. I want to make it up somehow. The check was for $57. I gave the men that arrested me 50 of it, and I spent $7. Yeah, that's all on the record. I did wrong. I'll pay the $7 back. Well, you can take that up with the judge, Gleason. Friday, Romero, you want to step outside with me a minute? Yeah, right. Gleason, you wait here with that officer. Yes, sir. What do you think? He's telling the truth. He's not the one we want. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'll go along with Ben.
Well, it makes 3 of us.
Monday, March 3rd, 5 p.m. We went in and checked with Don Myers. In carefully going over exemplars of Carver Gleason's handwriting, he had definitely eliminated him as our suspect. Carver Gleason remained in custody awaiting trial. 3 months went by. During this time, the burglaries and forgeries continued. Suspects were picked up, checked out, and released. We got nowhere. Tuesday, July 12th. We received a communication from Chief Adam Jensen of the San Diego Police Department, who stated he was forwarding a radiogram from Chief John W. Polsine of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin Police Department. The radiogram from Chief Polsine stated that his handwriting man in Milwaukee had identified the suspect's handwriting, as listed in one of the San Diego bulletins, as belonging to Philip E. Holloway. Holloway was arrested 2 years previous on a reckless driving charge. The physical description of the man matched closely with the one that we'd received on the suspect known to us as Harvey Fletcher. They further stated that although he was at one time a resident of Milwaukee, they had nothing further on him. It was just an outside chance, but we decided that in all probability this could be the suspect's true name, Philip E. Holloway. This information was forwarded to the postal authorities. Ben and I started to check through our channels to determine the whereabouts of the suspect, Philip E. Holloway, with a possible alias of Harvey Fletcher.
Yeah, that's it, Joe. Nothing in any of the phone books. Yeah. Covered everything I can think of. Our records, sheriff's records, nothing from CII, utility companies.
Yeah, well, maybe Smith found something on him. We haven't got anything here.
Think I'll give him a call, huh, Joe?
Yeah, I'd like to know. That's extension 664.
Yeah, I know. No, 664. Hello, Inspector Smith, please. How's that? Oh, I see. No, that's all right, thank you. On his way over here, he left 5 minutes ago.
I sure hope he's got something.
Joe, Ben. Hi, Leo. Think maybe we ran it down.
Good. How'd you do it? Through the Postal Service?
Yeah. Didn't figure, did it?
Well, we didn't think he'd stay put long enough to have a permanent address.
Well, he's been on the move, but we got the last known address on him. Received mail there 2 days ago. You want to check with Don Myers? He's been working over those exemplars Milwaukee sent us. Just did. Called him about 15 minutes ago. Oh. We just got back from R&I.
What do you say this time?
He and Conway agree all the way this trip. Yeah. Holloway's our man.
Together with the postal authorities, Ben and I helped in the 24-hour surveillance placed on the suspect, Philip E. Holloway. Our findings disclosed that he was living in a modest apartment house and he was employed by a local vacuum cleaner company as a door-to-door salesman. This type of occupation would enable anyone to have suspicion-free access to any and all types of home mailboxes. The first 3 days of the surveillance failed to disclose any further incriminating evidence. Thursday, July 17th, 5th day of the 24-hour surveillance, 2:30 p.m. Holloway came out of his apartment building, got into his car, and drove approximately 4 miles to the Echo Park residential district. He parked his car, got out, and went up the steps of a small apartment house. Together with Inspector Leo Smith, Ben and I followed him.
You want to pull up here, Ben? This is good.
All right. Yeah, he's going for that mailbox, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's got the key. It's opening the panel.
Not a worry in the world. Broad daylight. Look at that. Yeah. He's got all the letters out of the box, got them in his pocket. On his way back to his car.
Leo, there's a bank right up there on Sunset, see?
Okay, let's stay with him. How's it look, Joe? You can see up ahead there. Is he pulling up?
Wait a minute. All right, let's go. Better pull up here, huh?
Oh, look at that. Just like it was blueprinted. Going right in the bank.
Come on.
Yeah. Joe, you see him? There he is. Second window. Just get in line right behind. All right.
Yes, sir, may I help you?
Yes, I wonder if you can cash a check for me?
Yes, sir, would you endorse it, please?
Sure. There you are. As you can see, this is one of my mother's checks. I guess I can cash it all right for her.
Do you have any identification?
I'm sorry, I don't. I'll say I have this envelope to check with mail being elected.
Yes, I think that's all right. How would you like this, sir?
He doesn't want it anyway, miss. Just hold that check for us, please. Postal inspector.
Yes, sir.
I beg your pardon. I believe you're making a mistake here.
No, there's no mistake. Come on, step over here. Shake him down.
I don't understand all this. That key you used over there on Baxter Street, that the one you made from that panel you stole over on Alvarado about 4 months ago? You know about that, huh? Yeah, we do. I did all right for a while, didn't I? That key angle's a pretty good one, isn't it? There isn't a lock in the world I can't make a key for. We got one in mind you might have trouble with.
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On October 15th, trial was held in United States District Court, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial. And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, all of us on Dragnet are convinced that Fatima is the best of all long cigarettes.
Well,
we think you'll like
we can tell you
Ask
small.
about the referral program.
2, 3, 4
Visit
bucks a day, right?
clienta.com.
This spring on Showcase.
We have announcements from France and possibly also Portugal indicating that they're going to cut unnecessary domestic flights that can be covered by train. I think that is a really important step and something.
That's huge.
The suspect, Philip Elwood Holloway, was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 10 years in the federal penitentiary. 5 years of his sentence was suspended and he was placed on probation. One of the conditions being that he make restitution of the stolen money.
Ladies and gentlemen, accidents of all types kill more persons from 1 to 35 years of age than does any single disease. America's homes and children can best be kept safe if every father, mother, and child develops the personal responsibility to know and observe home safety rules. Make home safety a family affair. Be careful. The life you save may be your own.
Documentaries to science. Listen.
Cases from
Call an advisor at 310-DEL. Vashon Insurance Group presents Did You Know?
Vashon has an RV program for all trailers, motorhomes, and park models. When you're not using your motorhome, they'll send you a check back. It's like a pay-as-you-go policy. Be surprised on how much you can save. Ask the expert.
That's the part that doesn't make sense. Why would they send a check back?
Rita Lashar with the real story. One topic, 1 hour every week. And this week, Joe Biden efforts to tackle climate change. As the US takes charge, we ask,
640 Toronto.
This is Global News. I'm Toby Carr. The federal government is suspending incoming passenger flights from India and Pakistan for the next month as variant cases of COVID-19 surge in both countries. Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu says the ban will give Canada time to assess the variants of COVID-19 prominent in those countries.
By eliminating direct travel from these countries, public health experts will have the time to evaluate the ongoing epidemiology of that region and to reassess the situation as this region works to reduce transmission and protect its people.
Cards will still be allowed, mainly so our country can keep receiving vaccines. But India likely won't be able to send any until at least June as it battles global record case counts. A Calgary pharmaceutical company says it will be ready to provide millions of COVID-19 vaccine doses once it receives the necessary approvals. Global's Krista Dow reports.
Providence Therapeutics will be headed for stage 2 clinical trials soon. CEO Brad Sorensen says with facility upgrades, it can do up to 200 required. Sorensen says the company is in talks with the federal and
Columbus to Christopher World Cup swinging sinister Anglican dip prime minister from time immemorial to my own memorial.
The House of Commons seeking funding and a commitment from the government for its vaccines. Krista Dow, Global News.
Justin Trudeau's minority Liberal government has survived the second of 3 confidence votes on the massive federal budget.
A Conservative amendment calling for the budget to be revised was defeated yesterday by a vote of 213 to 120. A Bloc Québécois sub-amendment was also easily defeated Wednesday. The government had informed opposition parties that it would consider both votes to be matters of confidence, meaning the government would fall if either of them passed. A third opportunity to pass judgment on the budget comes Monday, when the House of Commons will vote on the main motion to approve the government's general budgetary policy. Emily Javeski, The Canadian Press.
The woman at the heart of sexual misconduct allegations against a former top military commander says retired General Jonathan Vance believes he is untouchable.
Major Kelly Brennan says the ex-chief of the defense staff told her he, quote, owned the Canadian Forces National Investigation Service, which is conducting the probe into the allegations against him. In bombshell testimony to the Status of Women Committee, Brennan revealed Vance fathered 2 children with her, but has taken no responsibility for them. She also says she's provided physical evidence of Vance's inappropriate relationship with her. That includes audio recordings of Vance allegedly instructing her to lie about their relationship and threatening consequences if she doesn't. Jerry Smith, The Canadian Press.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledging that Canada will slash its greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 45% within the next decade.
The cut applies to 2005 emissions levels. The new target is higher than the 36% reduction in emissions the Liberal government says it can achieve under existing measures by 2030. Trudeau announced the higher target during a virtual climate summit of world leaders convened by U.S. President Joe Biden, who pledged to cut his country's emissions by 50 to 52% by 2030. Still, Canada's new target falls short of the minimum 50 to 60% reduction that climate groups and opposition parties said was needed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Terry Pidwell, The Canadian Press, Ottawa.
In sports, 2 matchups in the NHL's North Division. We had the Toronto Maple Leafs scoring 2 goals in the first minute and 18 seconds of their matchup.
And for the country's longest-serving president, Idris Deby.
Arduous efforts on the part of China. The targets of carbon peaking.
In Hainan, the rocket is scheduled to launch the core module of China's space station. Texas has reported its first hospitalization related to Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine. A woman has been hospitalized after receiving the vaccine. She has symptoms similar to the 6 blood clotting cases.
2020 and 57.7% in 2019.
Last week, U.S. health authorities called for a pause in the use of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine after blood clots were reported in 6 recipients. A World Health Organization official says several African countries could experience an outbreak of measles amid stalled vaccination against that virus because of disruptions linked to the COVID-19 virus. A WHO official in Africa says that countries that have delayed measles immunization could experience a resurgence of the disease that affects young children. The official says that besides recent outbreaks of measles, yellow fever, cholera, and meningitis all point to worrying gaps in immunization coverage and surveillance in Africa. Statistics from the WHO indicate that 15 African countries postponed immunization drives against measles in 2020 to help deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Chinese courts will step up judicial work to facilitate the country's anti-monopoly drive. A plan on judicial protection for intellectual property today lists key jobs on judicial protection over the next 5 years. It says courts will strengthen work on monopoly and unfair competition cases, and judicial interpretations will be issued to help curb monopolistic conduct and unfair competition. It says improved measures, including evidence preservation, will ensure that intellectual property rights violations will be halted promptly. And that's the news.
Called me before he comes. Why? I want to talk to him. That's why. Business, you know, that old stuff. Oh, business. We're going to have any fun business. Who are you, anyway? Sit down. I'm a guy who suddenly knows what the old-fashioned Iceman must have felt like. Huh? Oh. Who are you, I asked.
You text it in, brothers and sisters. You get it right. Congratulations, yo.
Services to ensure equal access for all people and improve livelihoods. We'll also find out why parents reading with kids is important, and it's time to measure your waistline, according to
by 50 to 52% of 2005 levels, accomplishing this by 2030. The European Union set 2030 as the target date to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% of 1990 levels. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told the World Summit on Climate that Europe plans to apply emissions trading to buildings, transport, and other sectors.
In June, my commission will table proposals to make Europe fit for 55. We will make emission trading work not only for energy generation and industry, but also for transport.
With a sulfur match, or maybe even a barbecue lighter, right, to light that candle, and sat there and read a book, maybe something like that, maybe on a Kindle, something that was charged by electricity, and then took a photo of it and published that photo on social media to show how amazingly caring they are for Mother Earth on Earth Day, and showed all their selfies and hashtag blessed, hashtag like my sweater, and all of these different things that people do on Earth Day to show the world through making servers and internet networks work hard and burn more electricity. So that's one thing that most people do. I did want to salute everybody who does curbside cleanup, like the sides of the highways. And I'm sure you delivery folks and trucker folks will know that, boy, does it ever look nice after people go and clean up the garbage. We throw an awful lot of garbage out the window. I am totally surprised. But I wanted to salute everybody who does exactly that. So one quick story for you here. Goodwill Industries of Alberta has launched a special hotel in Edmonton that you can only check in if you're fuzzy and you're a pollinator. A new bee hotel was installed in Northwest Edmonton in honor of Earth Day.
So today is a really special day for Goodwill. Today, all the retail stores across Alberta are gathering together to make a positive impact in our communities. We're participating in what we call the Goodwill City Cleanup. Team members from all retail stores are cleaning the areas around the stores to make a positive impact in our communities. Also today, we have a really special event at the amazing Goodwill Impact Center. We're going to unveil the first ever Goodwill Bee Hotel. And that's a really amazing project that I would love to share with you guys in this segment.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what a bee hotel is, Mortimer, and how Goodwill got involved with them.
So a bee hotel is an artificial habitat for solitary bees. So pollinators all around the globe, they're declining at alarming rates. And 1/3 of the food we eat depends on pollinators. Also, pollinators are key for the health of our ecosystems.
Yeah, but
so
all
what
the
we have
food
been
our food
doing,
eats.
and as you can see in that photo, we have a plastic planter that was made entirely with plastic flakes that were granulated at the amazing Goodwill Impact Center in Edmonton. The post was put together using parts from a broken bed. The hotel, the small boat you can see on top of the boat, was made by volunteers from the Edmonton Area Land Trust. And the plants are native plants to Alberta. So this concept is all about diversion from the landfill. It's all about making a positive impact on the environment, and it's about showcasing our commitment to sustainability.
It's a Greenpeace sticker on the Exxon Valdez.
Pretty cool stuff right there. Bee Hotel. That to me is how you celebrate Earth Day. Hashtag blast on social media. I don't buy it. I don't buy that enough people are doing a nice thing. But holy cow, I salute these people for taking that up in Edmonton and creating a thing. So the bumblebees, man, we got to take care of the bees. I do stand by that one, hands down, around the world. So 877-399-9898. What did you do for Earth Day? Feel free to share it. Happy to pass that on too. In the meantime, we need to wrap up the April Riffage with Matt MacArthur. Here's a little reminder.
Complete faith in your ability to protect them. But I finally turned to my insurance company, hoping to save a few dollars.
Yeah.
They sent a scoundrel named Dollar from Hartford to protect me, mind you. And do you know what he did?
Now, what did he do? No, what did he do?
Well, just to make sure this Dollar's up, I called a private detective and had him followed when he left here. And that detective told me that Dollar went to Sophia and my nephew Chalmers and is trying to entice them to kill me for my insurance money so they can buy some phony oil stock he's trying to sell them.
Huh? That guy sounds like a big operator. Yeah, that guy sounds like a big operator.
Well, whatever he is, I want that young man out of the way.
Marty, you don't really mean out of the way.
That's exactly what I mean.
Joseph, I see something I don't like very much. What is it? Some shadows moving around under the edge of the front door. Well, what are we waiting for? Come here, you! I wasn't a match for one of those guys, let alone two. And Rocky, Big Sir Echo, not only repeated everything Joe said, he repeated everything Joe did. Take that! Oh! Yeah, take this! Oh!
That's good. That's very good. Now, that's him. That's Dollar. You hold him. Hold him. Don't let him get away.
Mr. Dollar, unless you're in a big hurry to get measured for a cement suit, don't start no funny business. Don't worry. I feel about as funny as a funeral. My own.
Well, I hope you've learned your lesson. Although, don't you think for a minute it's all over. This'll teach you honesty is the best policy, and cheaters never prosper.
Take it easy, there, my dear. This boy will not ever bother you again. Come on, Buster. Yeah. Come on, Buster.
Yeah. Go on, Buster.
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, this fall, you hear them all on CBS, and you hear from the top mystery writers as well as top stars like Jack Benny, Bing Crosby, and the Lux Radio Theater luminaries. One such master of mystery, Raymond Chandler, and his world-famous private eye, Philip Marlowe, will be heard from later tonight on most of these same CBS stations. Be sure to hear this latest, hard-bitten, wisecracking adventure of Philip Marlowe later tonight, won't you? Tune in this fall for the show that you are best of all. Listen carefully, here's the address. It's CBS. Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Usually, when people are taken for a ride, at least it's a free one. However, Joseph and his friend Rocky didn't feel that way. So, expense account, item 3, $1.20, cab fare, up Tremont Street toward Boston's South End. The three of us sat packed in the back of the taxi with me in the middle, and just as we passed King's Chapel Burying Ground, Rocky and Joseph suddenly felt the urge to be alone with me. Hey, Dad, crank up your window. We wish to be in private. What happened? I had the crank fell off. Yeah, you and your lousy cab. Yeah, you and your lousy cab. Well, step on it.
There were also things to step on in Joe's lousy hotel. Up in his room, they gave me the hot seat of honor on the edge of the bed, stood over me, one on each side, and issued me an invitation, but not to dance.
We think you are a smart guy, Summer, and we want a piece of your action.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, Joe, what are you talking about? That. You just keep your muscles handy. I do the thinking, and the talking. Okay, so go do it. What? Do it. Yeah. Let's see. Where was we? Yeah. Like I was saying, Dollar, you got a good racket, and we want a piece of your action.
Oh. Okay, Joe. What do you think my action is?
Last time, buddy, I've been around hustlers all my life, so you ain't fooling me. You set up the old lady to get knocked off just like she said. In the meantime, you get all the people who will collect their insurance nice and ready to put it aside here. Your hands are clean, except for a bush league swindle. The most you could get out of that is from 3 to 5 years, and that's the only chance you're taking.
Joe, you're a genius. But let me ask you one thing, though. Why should I go to all that trouble? Why shouldn't I just sell my hot oil stock to the old lady in the first place and save all that extra trouble?
That's where guys like you are smarter than guys like me. You got your reasons. You ain't kidding nobody. You like the way you operate. And we want in.
Oh, I guess I found myself a pair of partners.
Good. Shake.
Yeah, shake. No, one at a time. Joe? Rocky?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is great. Yeah, Rocky and me have been taking Grandma for a few bucks now and then, protecting her from them squashies to say that. But I never thought it would turn into anything as big as this.
Just out of curiosity, how'd you guys meet Grandma in the first place?
We was doing a little social break in the net one night, and it turned out to be her house. She got the drop on it. We seen her there in her wheelchair, pushed her into the bedroom, and went to work. Yeah, went to work. And the next thing we know, she's standing there pointing a whole shotgun at us. What? You creeped up. It's no shotgun. What? What are you? It's a very hysterical musket. Oh. Stupid. She told me. Let's see, where was we? Anyway, that's how we met. She made it today. She wouldn't call the cops if we'd been returned. Besides, she paid us for it. We ought to have a bottle sent up.
What for?
Well, all we got to do is wait till the nephew or the niece knuckles to reading. Why not have a drink while we're waiting?
Oh, whoa, now hold everything. That's not the way to do it.
How come?
Yeah, how come? Now, look, if we sit here, we blow a big chance. The chance to get rid of whoever murders the old doll. We see who do it. We turn them in. They're out of the way, and the insurance money goes to the other one. Then I go to work on them.
You see what I mean, Rocky? That's why guys like him has got more brains than guys like me.
Yeah, more brains than guys like me, too.
In spades. Okay, Donna, what do we do?
I was in a bad spot, but I put you, Auntie Carter, in a worse one, hoping to attract any bad apples that might be hanging on your family tree. Then all of a sudden you decided I was a worm and eliminated me as your #1 protector. Among your spoiled family fruit, there was nephew Chalmers, fishy-eyed and money-hungry, his wife Crystal, who was no killer to look at, but who could be sure of her with a gun in her hand. Then there was Sophia. She was stuffy, but strangely reminded me of a precocious young lady who strangled her mother so that she might wear her evening gown to her high school senior prom. So, when Joseph, expert in giving a fellow's eye a coat of many colors, asked me, what do we do now? I honestly didn't know. The best answer I could come up with was get back to where we could keep an eye on your address on Pinckney Street. But when we got there, Pinckney Street was blocked off by blue uniforms, and reinforcements were still arriving. Hey, what's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Well, you got to be sure of one thing. This ain't the policeman's ball. Look, how well do you guys know to the Boston police?
It's some of their best quizmasters that failed to make it good.
Yeah, they failed to make us talk.
Okay, you better let me go ahead. Not too far ahead.
Don't worry. Hey, look, Joseph, the cops are coming down out of our house.
Oh, what do you mean now?
Looks like they got me. Look, that. Yeah, I'd better get up the hill and find out for sure.
Don't forget, partner, we're watching.
Don't worry.
Keep moving, boys, with it. Just keep moving, mister.
Hey, officer. Officer.
Yeah?
I'm Dollar of the Boston Globe. What's going on? Am I going to make the front page?
Yeah, you might.
What's it all about?
Some dame, a friend of the commissioner's, called for protection.
Oh, I thought it was a murder.
It is. By the time we get here, the dame up there is colder than Sunday morning beans.
How do you like that?
Hey, Dollar, when you're writing the story, my name is Fred Mosher.
Huh? Oh, yeah, Fred Mosher.
Yeah, I used to play basketball for the Boys Club of Boston. And when you're writing the story, put my name in, will you? The wife will get a kick out of it. Well, I got to get back to headquarters.
Headquarters? Hey, officer. Fred.
Yeah?
Come here. Listen, I'll see that you get your name in the paper if you do me a favor. Act like you're arresting me, will you? A couple of friends of mine are just down the street. I want to pull a gag on them.
Sure. With or without handcuffs.
Anyway, just grab me by the elbow and throw me in that squad car. I could tell by the eyes of Joseph and Rocky that I had just successfully dissolved a partnership. At the corner of Arlington and Boylston, I swapped the patrol car for a cab. And, what do you know? I headed back across the Charles River to Cambridge.
Oh, hello, darling. I'm sorry the maid wasn't here to answer the door. I'm all alone, isn't it? Come on. Wow.
Would you mind, Crystal, walking just a few more steps ahead of me? It'll make you easier to follow.
Yeah.
Where's your husband?
Oh, stop worrying about my husband. He had to go out for a while on business. I told you before, he always calls before he comes home. In case I want him to bring.
How long have you been gone?
I used to stop worrying about you. Why don't you stop
Wait a minute. Now, stop. Get a grip on yourself. Please, watch it. Crystal, what are you up to? Oh, stop it. Stop it, I say. Oh, it's you, Dollar. A finder, huh? Just what are you trying to find? Now, wait a minute, Carter.
Oh, Johnny, thank heaven you got here. He forced his way in. He's from New York.
I am not. I'm from Hartford. It's only my suit that's from New York. Why, you despicable cat. I've a good notion to surprise you within an inch of your life. I was certainly in no position to ask any questions around there, so I hit him a shot in the whiskers and left. Where do you think I went? Back across the Charles River to Bay State Road, and Niece Sophia's pompous little apartment. Nobody answered, so I broke rule number 3 in the book of how not to get your head split open when nobody answers the door. Picked the burglar's friend type lock, and went in. I thought at first I set off a new, polite kind of burglar alarm, but it was only a grandfather clock tolling out 10 p.m. as the moonlight bopped me smacking the kisser. First thing I saw, out the window, was my friend the Charles River, over which I'd made more crosses than the X-Man in a tic-tac-toe tournament. My tongue was as dry as that was wet. The second thing I saw, thanks to my fountain pen type flashlight, was an open drawer in a kidney-shaped desk. Sophia Carter was no housekeeper. The white paper lining inside it was dusty, except for the portion that held the vacant outline of a junior miss-sized revolver. Then the lights went on.
Well, Mr. Dollar, you do the death of me yet?
Auntie, what are you doing alive?
Oh, you're surprised. You hoped I'd be dead, didn't you? Well, I'm not. I'm not, you see?
Yeah, I sure do see.
But you'll be dead if I pull this trigger.
Honey, when I don't walk in on a man with a gun in his hand, it's a matter of courage. When I don't throw a flying tackle on a girl with a gun in her hand, it's a matter of etiquette.
And when I don't get rough with an old lady holding a gun in her hand, it's a matter of knowing that your age, your reflexes are gone. You can be taught kind of things. With me holding your gun hand straight up overhead, I hope nobody's at home upstairs. Here, give me that.
Let me go! Let me go! Don't you kill me! Everybody tried to kill me. Sophia was when she came to my classes after school.
Oh, which must mean that Sophia is the body in your flat tonight. The body I thought was yours.
I know she was. She's been threatening to kill me for years.
Now, what's that you've got in your other hand?
No, you can't.
Here, give it now.
No, you can't. No.
What I ripped out of her hand was a very old note, written on very old paper. And reading it, what with the clawing, scratching 82-year-old woman tucked under one arm, it read like a voice from out of the past. The voice of that 82-year-old woman's long dead husband, Caleb Carter.
So these last remaining moments of consciousness, I tell you, my wife Mary is making repeated attempts upon my life. This time, I'm afraid she has succeeded. Also, crushing the life from your father, my brother, beneath the wheels of her carriage as he rushed to my rescue.
Well, I guess this means that Sophia had this letter and has been holding it over your head for years.
You've been blackmailing me. Blackmailing me. Blackmailing me.
Melody, it was your conscience that first called me into this case to protect you from your relatives. It was your conscience that hired that private detective to protect you from me. And it was your conscience that got you mixed up with Joe and Rocky to protect you from the detective and me. Then again, it was that same old conscience that called in the police to protect you from your gangster friends. Now there's only one more thing, I hope.
What's that?
That same conscience will prevent you from making an undignified surrender. My arm.
Thank you. Your name? You are.
Expense account, item 4, $15, pipe and slippers. Appeasement to Chalmers Carter, nephew of the accused, to give him a symbol that all I was really trying to find was a way to straighten out his home life. Item 5, $50, a personally autographed check in lieu of his name in the paper to Patrolman Fred Mosier, so that the wife would still get a kick out of the publication of his name on the payable to line of said check. Expense account item 6, $15. Gift to Joseph and Rocky. One roll of tickets on the River Queen sightseeing boat, which gives daily round-trip tours of the Charles River. Maybe they'll do me a favor and fall in. Item 7, $5.98. Airfare, Boston to Hartford. Expense account total? What's the use? What are you on now, Aunt Melanie Carter? You're never going to be in a position to pay. I won't even bother to sign it. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell. Script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Be sure to be with us at the same time next week when another unusual expense account is handed in by
yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across the windswept, snow-covered reaches of the wild Northwest, Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice, the breakfast cereal gun, presents the
you are to yourself, as truthful, as honest as you can be, right? And I don't know any other way to put it. Like, the way you and I interact, right? It's
Bang! Enjoy this breakfast treat. Quaker puff rice or Quaker, more discouraged. He had persuaded Amy to come to Dawson from Seattle, taking the small bank account they had to make the trip and to pay its claim began to pay off. But so far, the money had dwindled and the take from the claim had been extremely little. And the claim, too.
You've got to face it, dear. We certainly can't keep the dogs if we can't feed them. Or ourselves. It's a chance we'll have to take. And then hope for the best.
Well, I guess the only other thing will be to try to sell what we have and get back to Seattle somehow.
Frank hitched up the bug team and set out for town. Later that evening, he stopped in front of the trading post. Frank stood. He could see several men standing around the big...
I don't get credit yourself.
Excuse me, boy. Yeah, all right. Hi there, mister. What can I do for you?
I want to get quite a lot of supplies.
Sure. Now, if you just give me your list,